Geltman and Weld on the Hammer Factor. Take it away, boys.
82, right? Yeah, because your trailer board's not correct here. Welcome to Hammer Factor, episode 82. My name is John Grace, producer here at the show. I'd like to introduce my co-host, John Weld, co-owner of Immersion Research and Policy Director for the Outdoor Alliance, Louis Geltman. Boys, we got a hell of a show lined up. We got Matt Porter, who's the product manager at Coca-Tapped. We have Sage Donnelly, former, or I think current, under 21 paddler of the year, female paddler of the year. Gosh, we got a trip report from Fantasy Falls coming. We've got some big Hammer Factor announcements. It's just fire all around.
Well, can we have somebody from Coca-Tapped on? We're not like engaging in some cartel activity here or something like that, or it's all.
You think it's like yeah, it's like, what's the word I'm looking for? Collusion? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, it probably can't be collusion on a podcast, right? That'd be some pretty weak collusion. Anyway,
we'll see. I'm not sure how. Yeah, no, I couldn't be more excited about this.
Come on, Coca-Tapped. They have been around for ages. They've got an interesting story. There was a time when they were fully mail order, and then they went back into retail, and they were Blue Puma. They got sued by Puma. I mean, yeah, I don't want to bust the story.
Layering piece. That was like my first. It was like sky blue.
I still have a Blue Puma that my dad had that gave to me.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll create an NFT for that. That moves me into some news.
I don't think you understand NFTs. That's my gut feeling on that.
The very first, the Hammer Factor is putting the very first episode up for sale, an NFT that you'll be able to bid on as soon as this show's live. I'll probably put it up there in 72 hours. I've got the price set as a minimum of 1/10 of an Ethereum token. So about $250 is your minimum bid. And all of the proceeds are going to go to American Whitewater. So this is your chance. If you're a crypto geek or into any of this stuff, like I have been down the rabbit hole the last month or two, go get your first ever NFT offering of episode 1. You will own the rights to it forever. And the way I've got it set up is you will get a 10% royalty in forever on that NFT. Thank you. So, what do you guys think about that?
I feel like every time I hear about NFTs, I'm like, I think I understand this, but it seems so stupid that I can't possibly understand it.
Well, it's just, it's a digital license is all it is.
I think when Nix got rid of the gold standard, that was when this whole thing started to go downhill. What is currency?
Let's not be chained to a cross of gold, Wells.
What's that?
Nothing. What was... it makes sense to me as like I don't know, like being able to buy and then resell digital music or something like that. But just like the idea that there's this like one digital object, it just seems so silly. I don't get it.
Yeah. If this was a different show, I could get into it. But anyway, we have that'll be on the website. Check it out. It's going to be for sale through Rarible, which is one of the, you can use everything from Coinbase to CoinDesk to whatever you want to purchase it there. What? It's going to be badass. You watch. This thing's going to go for like $multi-thousand. You watch. There's somebody with a Coinbase wallet on their phone. They bought Ethereum when it was $5. It's like $3,000 or something right now. And they're going to be like, what the heck, 1/10 of an Ethereum? I'll throw that on there. No problem. I'll cash it out and give it to AW.
I'm trying to decide if you're serious about this.
I'm kind of interested to see how this goes.
We're going to see. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, check the show notes for that. Other Hammer Factor news. Hammer Factor is going to be, with the return of the North Fork Championship, doing live coverage. So you'll be able to watch the North Fork Championship live this year.
No way, like same as the green race.
Same as the green race. We're going to go out there and get it all set up in a big way. I mean, we spent a ton of time building that platform, and there's all kinds of benefits for that to be done.
That's sick, man. That's exciting. I've not seen or heard that anywhere. I feel like that race needs that, and it's like so conducive to it just being, like a shorter course where you can cover the whole thing. Like, that's sick.
And logistically, it's super hard. There's a road on one side. There's a railroad track on the other side. Getting a signal out of there is like, it's going to be a fun challenge. But anyway, we'll be out there. Are you going to come, Lewis?
I'm not going to race, but Darby's fired up, so I think I'll probably come over and like boat caddy or whatever she needs.
Dude, we'll put you on the live coverage, dude. You can be a guest commentator.
Yeah, I'd do that. That'd be fun.
But I think that's about it on the Hammer Factor front, which that's quite a lot. I think that's pretty much breaking news there about the NFC Live. So whenever this goes out, it may not be breaking news by the time I get it actually published, but pretty much you guys are hearing it before anybody else. So Lewis, word on the street is you got a Fantasy Falls trip.
Oh yeah, we had a bit of an epic down there for sure. I don't know, it's been in a bunch this spring, or like maybe people just figured out going earlier. And I know Stewsbury and Hale and some other folks were like hiking in before the road opened. But yeah, we got down there, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, I guess. And yeah, we had an epic. It was snowing like hard when we were driving over the pass. We were planning to do the, like the 2.5 day, like put on late in the afternoon, get through the Manx section, camp kind of like right above the TRV gorge, and then do one more night. But we got to the put in. It was snowing like 1,000 feet above us. It was pretty late in the day. We were like, let's just put on the morning and do a 2-day. Pretty long day, pretty rugged weather, camped a little above Rifleman's, and I don't know, like hammering rain and sleet and just like pretty grovelly. And then the next morning it's I don't know, we get down to Rifleman's in 5 or 10 minutes, and the old Stoutmeister dislocates his shoulder, kind of in the crux of Rifleman's, which was it was a bummer. Like he had a super good line, just kind of like took a little tiny brace off the wall, and it was enough to pop his shoulder out. Got him out. I mean, he didn't even flip, but got him out, right below that kind of crux drop. But it's still pretty locked in right there. So we were kind of on this little ledge on the side of the river. I got his shoulder back in, which was sweet.
Like, were you there with him on that ledge, or?
Yeah, it was like a little gully down to the river, and I don't know, there was like, room to stand around a bit, but still pretty locked in. We couldn't really get up like out of the inner gorge there. You
can go to the California Police website or Facebook page and see an edit of this whole thing, by the way.
Sweet.
Can you really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll link to that in the show notes. Check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have a video of the helicopter. You can see Geltman and Darby sitting there, and I assume Ian also. I can sort of pick out Ian there.
Yeah. So got Ian's shoulder back in, but there was really like no way to get out of there on foot.
You just scooped his story, Weld.
What's that?
You just scooped Lewis's story right there.
Oh no, that's all right. So yeah, so we had to fire up the old InReach, and the CHP helicopter came and got Ian out of there, which was, I don't know. I mean, it's that was the first time I've ever been a part of anything like that on the river. It never feels good to have to like call in outside help like that. Like you always want to be self-sufficient, and it always sort of feels like, like a black eye for kayakers when you have to do something like that. But it definitely seemed like the right decision. I mean, we got like when your shoulder's out, you're in a lot of pain, and then like once you get it back in, it's the pain goes way down, but your shoulder is just like freaking out, and there's no way you can really paddle at all. And the run out from there is like class 4 plus, and there was really no way to get around there on foot. So it yeah, it kind of felt like the thing to do.
So did they put a rope right down to that ledge? Did you like ascend out of that area to another like drop?
They came with a helicopter, lowered like like a search and rescue guy, dropped him. He like hung out for a minute, got Ian all prepped. The helicopter came back, like long lined Ian out, flew him out to, I don't know, I think to Bear Valley. And like the search and rescue guy hung out with us for like, I don't know, 20 minutes or 30 minutes while they were making the round trip with Ian. And it was good chatting with the guy. I mean, you're like watching the helicopter come in and you're just like, this is so cool. Like I hope these guys are not like I hope these guys appreciate how cool this job is. And the guy who was hanging out and chatting with us definitely did. He was like, yeah, there's like 3 guys at my fire station who are trained to do this, and I hope they don't train anybody else. Like, this is so sick. You like had us take a picture of him next to the rapid, I mean, not to like act like it's no big deal to have to call in the helicopter, but at least you feel better about it knowing that the guys who are doing it are stoked.
So what was the dude thinking? Was he like asking about what you were in there kayaking? Did he have experience pulling kayakers out? Was there any interesting points of conversation?
I mean, he definitely didn't seem like, I mean, he was just sort of, I don't know, he like seemed like just like a young bro. I mean, like mountain biker, like guy who lives in Myers, like definitely somebody who's kind of part of the culture. And I mean, he wasn't really like grilling us on the whitewater too much, but he was just like, yeah, it's sick country out here. It's cool to be in here.
Appreciate it, fellas.
Yeah.
Ian's driving back this weekend, I think, to get his boat and paddle out of there.
Yeah, he told me that. That's cool. I hope he gets it sorted and figures out how to get the boat out of there.
Yeah, he borrowed that boat. He borrowed.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the worst.
Another guy works at IR.
Yeah. So I mean, we like the next, that day we were like hoping to get down to the lake, and it's like, I spent 3 hours dealing with that, and it's getting pretty late in the day, and we kind of realized we're not going to make it to the lake, and we're like, all right, well, we don't have a ton of food, but at least I have like the better part of a 5th of bourbon, and like we'll be all right. We like get down to camp, and I take out my stuff float, and like the cap has come off the bottle of Old Crow, and like every ounce of it has soaked into my sleeping bag. Just like this trip is cursed. Like what can you do at that point but laugh, right? And like we have like 2 packages of ramen, one of which gets spilled into the fire. It's just like, it was a grovelier Fantasy Falls experience than I've had in the past for sure, but it's still good to be out there, and just an all-time place to go kayaking for sure.
So what's the report from Stoutmaster? What's he got to say, Weld?
I mean, well, if we could have Ian to talk about it if you like. I think he's going to be fine. That's the first. Have you guys, Lewis, I know you have. Grace, you dislocated your shoulder?
No, negative.
Yeah. I subluxed mine in Mexico. It was out for like a second and went back in. And I saw my kayaking career flash before my eyes.
Oh, it's the scariest thing.
I mean, Ian's back at work. I think he's sore for sure, but he has pretty good mobility. He's out of a sling.
Does he need surgery?
I don't think so. He's looking to get an MRI. There's some debate about whether he should get an MRI or not. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is like, like when your shoulder comes out, like 90% of the time you tear your labrum.
Right.
And it's like, like 90% of the time, if your shoulder comes out once, that means it's going to come out again. And it's like, it's probably worth trying to rehab it one time before you have shoulder surgery. But that's, more likely than not the direction you're heading. But I don't know. Maybe Ian's the exception. I hope so.
Oh, that's
He's
epic. Young. So now that was a free helicopter trip, wasn't it?
It was. That was interesting to me because, if it's the police, it's free. But if you get life flight, it's really costly. And then I found out, and you guys probably know this. I guess I knew this, but I forgot about it. You can get life flight insurance for $30 a year.
Really?
Yeah. And, if you think about it, it's not just for kayaking. Like, you could be in a car accident in the middle of the Cascade somewhere and be, like, life lighted, or mountain biking somewhere and get life lighted, or any of this crazy shit we're doing, skiing or whatever. That seems to be not a bad deal.
Yeah.
I didn't see the $30 price quote myself, but the guy who told me seemed to know what he was talking about, and that's what he says he has, and that's what he pays. So maybe there's some more fine print to that, but
I'm gonna look into that. And I mean, another thing, like kind of a takeaway from me for all of this is like, like the thing that happened was like the one medical emergency that I feel most qualified to deal with. Like putting me so many times, but I got to take a woofer, man. Like I want that expertise, It just feels loose not to have it.
It's so good when you're in a situation like that. It's well, good on you. It's good to hear Stoutmeister's doing better. Stoutmeister. Fantasy Falls, man, what a good run. Did you have any like good moments out there? Just feel it in any of the gorges, or like any standout whitewater events? Or
did we run Untouchables?
There were no Untouchables runs. That is such a stout rapid. I'm excited to have Sage on in a minute to chat about it, but it is so stout.
Dude, her line was so amazing. Just like...
Yeah, I mean, that rapid's so gnarly. I mean, that's got to be... I would say the two gnarliest things I've ever seen run in person are Untouchables and Sight Zed. And I would... If gun to my head, which one would I run? Like, I don't know.
I've walked it 6 times. I've stood on top of it 6 times and walked it every time. So
you never walked back up to run it again to perfect your line?
No, I haven't quite done that. But I'm almost inspired to go out there,
Gene and Dylan Thompson
style. Yeah.
Have you been watching? I know this is a tangent, but have you seen it? I mean, Dane is just on a fucking tear, eh? Like the tomahawk off Cherry Bomb. Did you see that?
Oh yeah. I mean,
what a savage.
We could go into a whole show about what Dane is doing in a kayak right now.
We need to have Dane. We never. I mean, he's like been on briefly, maybe. But we need to have him in for a sit down, eh?
We'll have him on like pre-green race to get in his head about the 4 minutes thing because it's eating at him. So.
Of like all of the things that I want to talk to Dane about on the Hammer Factor, the green race is kind of low on the list, man. I got to say.
Well, you can talk about the other stuff. I'm just going to talk about the green race. All right, so we're kind of running a little late here, Lewis. Do you have any very important policy updates for us that we should dive into?
I mean, I don't have anything I need you guys to do right now. I mean, I have stuff to talk about if you want to talk about it, but if we're hustling on to other matters, we can abstain.
We're a little late getting Matt poured on. What was up with that dude climbing out from under Deb Holland's desk? Did you get that link I sent you the other day?
I got the link, but I didn't watch it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm afraid to click on those things because I'm afraid you're going to have this is going to spiral into some kind of conspiracy theory.
What are you talking about?
I don't know. You got your finger on that a little bit too hard. That the pulse of that whole scene.
Well, did you read that article I sent you guys about Outdoor Retailer and the Big Gear Show? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that with when we get Matt on here in just a minute. But also that text that you sent me about the whole Q thing, I called that 4 years ago.
You did. That's what I said.
You guys,
John Grace has been on it from the beginning that QAnon is a new religion.
Are we going to talk about? Let's talk about no QAnon. Are we going to talk about our? Actually, this is maybe just as bad. Our Lewis and I doing downwinding paddling now. After Lewis talking and doing downwinding paddling.
Oh, here we go.
Is that what we call it? Downwinding paddling?
Yeah, here we go.
I don't know what it's called.
Surf ski, downwinding.
Yeah. I bring up a one wheel and you guys gag, and now we're getting to a sport you don't even know what to say about.
I hit up Weld last night, last possible minute at 5 o'clock to see if he'd go, and he was already going to go ride his gravel bike up a hill or something. But I went out with my buddy Don, and it was definitely, I mean, I'm 20 days into this pursuit, but it was for sure the best day I've had out there. It was so sick, man. It's 6 to 8 foot waves, the whole way from, I mean, probably halfway from like Drano to the White Salmon Mouth.
What kind of
Like
distance
it was
is that?
blowing. What's that?
What kind of distance is that?
Maybe like 7 miles.
Okay.
It's like it's just cool, man. I'm into it. It was like I don't know, like Don looked at the like wind gauge after we got done, and I guess it was blowing like mid 30s to gusting like at 50, which like if I'd seen that before we went out, I probably would have been too scared to go, but it was actually like super manageable and like really sick. And just
What do you do if you get your surf ski sideways to that wind? Like, how do you straighten it back out?
yeah, it has like a foot rudder, so
Yeah, it's got a rudder. That really wouldn't happen, I don't think, unless you're completely out of control.
God, I've been on open bodies of water in like a kayak before, and like, I don't know.
Yeah, the rudder makes a big difference. Like I remember we did this race a while ago that involved like crossing the Columbia from the White Salmon to the Hood River event site, and I was paddling a wild water boat, and it was windy, and it was just like the entire way across the Columbia, it was just like right sweeps trying to keep the boat from spinning in the wind.
That's what I'm
And like
talking
the
about.
surf skis, I think they're lower, like the deck's lower, so they don't catch the wind so badly, and then the rudder, has like a foot rudder, and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, you just peg the foot rudder to one side and just paddle.
Just hammer. I'm intrigued. I'll admit it. I'm intrigued. You guys are in the spot for it. I mean, there's nowhere else you're gonna be able to jam like
I feel
that.
like I'm like one step closer to being like Colorado dad paddler. You know what I mean?
Just don't think about it, man. You just
Like
everything.
Colorado dad.
It's like
I don't.
I know that this is like a tool bag pursuit, and that I'm deeply uncool for liking it. Like it's fucking fun.
It's like the guy who was like hot shit in the 90s, like 1990, Gore Canyon, Dagger Response. And now he, instead of like whitewater, maybe he does like
he's a
like a
one-wheeler.
300-mile flat water paddle with his buddies, right? Like on the Rio Grande water boats. And they take raw almonds. That's what they eat for dinner, right? It's like raw almonds. And then it's like you're on the campsite, and I'll be like, dude, I can't eat 4 of my almonds. Do you want one of these, Trask? And Trask will be like, no, dude, I'm stuffed. These are awesome almonds. Where'd you get them? I'd be like, oh, I got them at Whole Foods. Oh, sick. And then we get done, and we go to a Mexican restaurant, and 4 of us would split like 2 entrees, split a margarita 4 ways. That dude.
Oh my God.
And I'd be like, dude, I gotta go because my 7-year-old has Nordic practice at like 4 a.m. tomorrow. They'd be sick. I'm like, yeah, it's sick. We did like a VO2 max when he was an unborn fetus, and we knew where he was going. He doesn't even know he can see in a mountain. They'd be like, sick. That's kind of life I'm buying into with this. That's what I feel like.
Oh God. All right. Well, there you go. I mean, I can kind of see that. Like just in the look through this screen, I can see that becoming. I mean, I don't know, product of the times.
I don't know. It's like, to me, it's like I don't think you have to go that direction with it. It's like you're just surfing waves, Like I don't know. Like if you want to start testing your VO2 max, you can do that. But like, I don't know.
You wear a heart rate monitor for one thing. Dorcas.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
You wear a heart rate monitor, Lewis?
And he has a wing. Yeah, he has like a wing heart rate monitor.
God.
So we put on. I mean, this is the thing, right? So we put on, right, and it's like Lewis and like Andrew McEwen, who's won the Texas Water Safari. We put on, and they just disappear, like carried away like an unseen wind. And it's just me sitting out there with like cargo ships floating by. Right, and then like an hour later, I see like Andrew paddling towards me, like a little dot on the horizon paddling towards me. He loops around me, and he's like, "How's it going?" I'm like, yeah, "It's going great, thank you." And he's gone.
The thing is, like, Andrew is as far ahead of me as I am of Well, probably more so. Like in like another like 3 sessions, you and I are going to be like neck and neck. Well, and Andrew's still going to be gone, but like we can chit chat and keep an eye on each other.
Well, I still have the boat. I'll say that.
So is this
Lewis? He sent me the link on Craigslist. He's like, "This is the boat you want," and so I went and bought it without even thinking about it. I just went down to Portland and got this thing. Right.
That's what I'm looking for from you. I appreciate that.
And the guy was like, "Do you know what you're doing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I know." He goes, "You're careful." I'm like, I know. He goes, "Here's a Mississippi." I'm like, I know, I got it.
Did you
He
ever
goes, "I'm gonna
see
send you an email with some links about safety." I'm like, "Okay, thank you, got it."
who's the guy
Do you have a
who,
life jacket?
who's the guy who has his own brand of those? He was like a world champion.
Greg Barton.
Yeah.
Epic.
Epic. Yeah. Did you ever see that video of that race that they put on where like they all came out of this like little inlet or bay or whatever off of a river, and they like come out and hit the current, and everybody gets swept under a barge, and they're just getting destroyed, dude. Just destroyed.
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm picturing you out there, Weld, in that camp.
Thank you.
Tugboat.
You know what it's like? It's very much like when I took you. We attained the lower dock and Waller boats.
Yeah, that was
right.
Yeah.
You didn't really enjoy it, did you, John Grace?
I mean, I did in a way. I really did.
I mean, this is how I feel about this. I'm like, I'm not. Yeah,
I wasn't doing it well, but I was like, I'd have little glimmers just enough to like keep me interested.
Exactly.
Classic Type 2 fun. All right, we got to get Matt Porter on here. While I am getting this done, can you guys keep our audience entertained?
Man, I also I feel like I'd be remiss if I did not mention going out to Idaho with Team Maryland a couple months, like maybe a month ago now. Like all the boys from DC I grew up with. We just had like an all-time crew of like some of my oldest best friends on Middle Fork Salmon. It's awesome.
Yeah, I would have gone, by the way. Thank
No,
you.
you wouldn't have.
Yeah, I would have.
You know what happened? I mean, we would have loved to have had you. Is the problem is when you say no, like 99 times out of 100, I stop asking.
Well, that trip I would have done.
Well, we missed you
Just
out
so
there.
you know.
You would
Just
have
to
been a great
recalibrate.
addition.
What's that?
So you would have been a great addition.
Thank you.
It's solidly lifestyle. It would have been too chill for you though. You would have been like all we're doing is soaking in hot springs and like drinking beer. Like I need to suffer.
I could have toned it down a bit.
You would have split a margarita with somebody with some almonds.
Matt Porter, where are we, Matt Porter? Is that Coca-Tapped?
Huh?
Matt, are you there?
Coca-Tapped?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
All right. Welcome to the show. Product manager at Coca-Tapped, Matt Porter. I got you. That was pretty quick. I feel good about being host and producer here at the show sometimes.
Is that Coca-Tapped behind you?
This is part of it. Yes. Yeah.
Really? Huh. Just hold still. Let me take a look around.
Do you want? We can do a tour a little bit. This is the demo room / my bike storage.
It looks like your garage. I have to be honest. It's
Well,
very casual.
I mean, at least he's in a place of work. Well, you're like in your kitchen or something. What are you doing?
Well, I have to come home because if I do it at work, all my co-workers are looking at me, waiting for me to say something stupid. And like, seems like frantically waving their hands in the background. I'm like, what? Huh? It's just too distracting.
Oh, so Matt, how's it going?
Like making like gestures.
Pretty good. How are you guys doing?
Oh, can't complain. Have you ever been surf skiing?
Surf skiing? No.
Like those epic kayaks, you know. You've seen them.
Sure.
No. Oh, they're like the sit on top touring boats. Basically?
Yeah, exactly.
Surfing?
Thank
No,
you.
I have not. I've been surfing in a sea kayak, but not on top of a surf ski.
Well, that's big up here in the gorge.
Real quick, Matt, introduce yourself, kind of where you're from, your origins in the paddle sports world, and kind of what you do there at Coca-Tapped.
Sure. Matt Porter. I'm the product manager for Coca-Tapped. I think I've been here since 2005. Yeah, 2005. I grew up in Oregon and started paddling in college when I was at Humboldt State here in Arcata, California. And yeah, I think that's it.
How long has Coca-Tapped been around?
Since 1971 is when the company was founded.
And it was founded as a paddle sports specific brand. Is that right?
No, it was actually founded as a combination of a outdoor store bike shop and a general outdoor gear manufacturer. So like our first product was some down sleeping bags and bivy sacks.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Was that Blue Puma, or what was the name of the company then?
yeah, that was Blue Puma. Yeah, and Arcata Transit Authority was the bike shop arm of the company at the same time, and then Blue Puma was the manufacturing side of it. So.
And that's Steve, who was O'Mara was the guy who did all this, right? Or how is it like? Was he was right there at that time?
Yeah, Steve O'Mara was the founder. Him and it was him and a few of his friends that started it.
But he's a boater.
He's an outdoor guy. He does some sea kayaking stuff. He hasn't done whitewater boating in quite a while, but yeah, he's a backpacker, outdoor guy, sea kayaker.
So how do you go from outdoor gear, which kind of makes some sense, to making kayaking gear, which makes slim to no sense?
Sure. Well, I think it was 1980 when they were Rob Lesser and Don Banducci were looking at doing the ALSEC first descent.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was 1980. They came to us to try to make some paddling jackets for the expedition, and that's where we started. We made a paddling jacket for those guys for that trip, and then started selling the paddling jacket. And it was just like a splash jacket with like long neoprene cuffs that you could zip up on it. So, and that was
I had one of those, by the way.
Did you? That's cool.
You're dating myself here. It was blue, and the neoprene cuffs were red.
Nice. Classy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was our first paddle sports specific product. So
Interesting.
and then we kind of just kept going from there. We kept for a while we were making both items, and we were making some stuff for the sailing industry, and then we eventually decided that we needed to focus on something, and decided paddle sports was the thing to focus on.
Well, you guys just go back to the sewing for a minute. So, I mean, part of Coca-Tapped's business is sewing, right? I mean, you guys are a sewing factory there. This has been kind of what you've been doing all along, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, and certainly in the 70s, I mean, that makes and even in the 80s makes some degree of sense, right? Because, there was no contracting out to Asia at that time or anywhere. But you guys have held tight with it. Like, how many people do you guys employ there sewing right now?
We're around 170 employees,
Jesus.
and probably 80% of that is production staff. So, I mean, not all of them are on a sewing machine. Some of them are seam sealing, cutting, other production jobs. But yeah, it's like 85% is production employees.
Right. And then, I mean, that's not all for whitewater, though. You guys do stuff for the military also, right?
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, all of those people work on whitewater and sea kayaking, kayak fishing stuff.
Oh, right. Paddling, I mean.
We have some contracts with the government and state and local, and search and rescue products, and then we also do some OEM stuff for Sitka, a hunting company, hunting, and we make some hunting waders for them also.
Right, because with that many people sewing, you don't need that many people sewing making paddle sports gear. I mean, there has to be more to it than.
No, not 12 months out of the year. Yeah, I mean, any given, like this week, they're all working on paddle sports stuff, but last week they weren't.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is all Northern California too. I mean, have you guys looked at moving, or I mean, I don't know that Steve would be interested in outsourcing. The limited conversations I have with him on the subject seems like he's pretty committed to that area.
Yeah, we're to my knowledge, there's been no discussion of looking for other areas.
Right. The labor base there is good, and everything's functioning, or
yeah, I mean, we've had real success, getting and keeping long-term employees in the area. We're one of the bigger non-government employers in Arcata.
Right.
So Humboldt County, Arcata is one of the bigger towns at around 17,000 population, and then Eureka is about double that size. It's just south of us on the other side of Humboldt Bay. But outside of that, it's pretty rural, and we're very isolated. Like it takes basically 3 hours to get out of Humboldt to I-5, or it takes like 6 hours to get south to San Francisco. So.
Oh, when you're there, you're there.
Yeah, you're there.
Sure. I kind of throw this out to both of you guys, and this is kind of like the history of the dry suit. So Coca-Tapped makes a lot of great things, PFDs, etc. But I would say the hero product, at least in whitewater, is the Gore-Tex dry suit. So were you guys one of the first people to really refine the dry suit? Like, what is the history of the dry suit? Because it really hardly existed even when I first started paddling, at least in whitewater. But
I mean, I would say we were I don't know if everyone would agree with me, but I would say we kind of made it a big thing in the paddle sports industry, and made it, we're the first guys to really bring dry suits into the market. Our first suits we started building in 1987, and that was like a coated urethane suit. And then our first Gore suit was in 1990, was the first Gore suit that we started producing, which was like the front entry dry suit. And then I think, 1992 was the first Meridian dry suit, which is kind of like our flagship suit still. I mean, it's gone through many design revisions since then, but that's the classic whitewater suit with the tunnel cover, the skirt tunnel cover. But yeah, and when we were developing the suits we worked a lot with Gore and helped them kind of tune their seam sealing process so it would work with a dry suit, which is a totally different environment, as John knows, than trying to make a raincoat out of something. So, like,
what is the difference in layman's terms? Is there a way you can explain that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pressure difference. It's like a raincoat, you're getting rained on. A dry suit, you're submerged in the water. So there's a lot more force put on that material. The water has a lot more pressure trying to get through the material because you're submerged in the water.
It's just a beefier seam.
And then just the construction, everything about it. If you made a dry suit for paddle sports the way they even make a really expensive rain jacket, it would be a disaster. Most rain jackets leak, and people don't even know it.
Or it's and it's the material. I mean, you look at even like a high-end mountaineering jacket that's made for supposedly like the gnar of climbing. It's that fabric is a lot less beefy than like the entry level dry suit is. The wear and tear that happens on a dry suit is just a different use than a raincoat or a ski jacket or something like that.
So obviously you have to have like good material to make a dry suit that's really dry, but like what percentage of it is like actual fabrication, like the process of making it, versus what you're making it with? Like,
I would think it's at least half of the process is, because I mean, you can get a suit, like, basically the way technology is now, there's a lot of fabric manufacturers that can make something that can be waterproof and dry. You know, I mean, and you look at kind of everyone out there they're not, no one's sourcing a fabric material that leaks. You know, when they get the roll of fabric, it's waterproof. It breathes at this point. Almost no one has a non-breathable waterproof fabric, and then it's dry. At least for, you know, off the shelf, it's dry. So it's really down to like the manufacturing process, like how you sew them, how you seal them, how you test them to make sure the suit's dry before it leaves your facility. And with especially suits, what you do for the life of that suit, because it's not a disposable product. You know, it's something that has a lifespan that you're gonna assume it's gonna come back for. You know, even if it's just a gasket or something, someone rips a hole in a knee or their butt, or, you know, they walk through too many blackberry bushes, scouting or walking around stuff, or just getting to the river, and you're gonna need to patch it. So those are the considerations, and you know, to build them.
I mean, you could look at like Sweet, who, you know, they don't make dry suits anymore, so I don't feel bad saying this, but I mean, they use similar materials to what Coca-Tapped's using, but they were still learning how to make a dry suit, right? I mean, even when they exited the market, they still hadn't had to figure it out. I mean, we repair lots of dry suits. I think they were stuck in the game for another, you know, 5 or 6 years. They probably would have figured it out, but they were still years away from dialing that process in for sure. You know, and there's no guidebook on how to build a dry suit, right? It's a tough business. I mean, when you buy a dry suit, you know, the ecosystem that the company that supplies that dry suit has to have a bunch of things working for you, you know, to be able to repair it in-house, to know what they're doing construction-wise, have people answering the phones that understand, you know, what you're talking about, because these problems can be complex, and a lot of gray area stuff like that. These are all things that factor into a dry suit purchase, for sure.
And I think it's unique too, and well, you can agree with me, or I think it's unique that it's a product that there's a lot of post-purchase considerations that you have to look at for a suit.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, you enter a relationship with these customers because you're going to see this thing back. I mean, you buy even if you buy a rain jacket, Patagonia's never going to see that rain jacket again, right? But we will see that dry suit back sooner or later for something, even if it's just a gasket replacement.
Yeah,
right?
I think it'd be similar as like if not to pick on a specific company, but like if Piranha had a boat patching service for cracked boats, like where you could send them their boat after you crack the butt out of it, and they would patch it for you. But that's expected. You know, that's expected for a dry suit. That's a service.
You know, this brings up an interesting point, and I'll throw this out to both of you guys. So you guys are talking about the manufacturers repairing these products. But like if I buy a bicycle, like a Giant bicycle, Giant doesn't fix my bike or work on it. Like the bike shop works on it. Like, do you ever see paddle sports stores like working on the stuff? Like, where's that disconnect? Why is it all on the manufacturers? Is it just tooling of stuff? I mean,
I think it's the type of repair is part of it. You know, like we have a repair facility over in the UK that does some higher level repairs where they'll water test and patch stuff. But most of like local shops, their level of technical expertise kind of stops at a gasket repair. Like there might be some shops that can kind of diagnose warranty issues maybe or leak issues, but they're not going to be able to repair it. And on part of it on our end, on the Gore side, is you have to license the facility and the machinery. So like there's no way a local shop could have a sealing machine or a patching machine.
Gotcha.
It's just they wouldn't get approved for it. It would be very cost prohibitive.
But I do think I would like to see an ecosystem for paddle sport shops that are more involved with repairs. I think it makes them more relevant to the community. I think it brings in income. It creates customers for them, right? I mean, I think we're talking about if we're talking about retailers not being in the best, as good a shape they were as in 20 years ago. I think having repairs on board would be a really great piece of that. And certainly a lot of, like, if you're just talking about spray skirts or just waterproof breathable repairs in general. I mean, a lot of stuff they can fix themselves. I mean, it's not rocket science.
Well,
But it comes down to like needing a seam sealing machine or sewing in a new zipper. I mean, that needs to go back to the factory. But you crack a bike frame, it's the same thing. Your bike shop can't do that, but they can be trained to tune a derailleur for sure.
Yeah, but if you crack a hole on your kayak,
Sure.
they hole replacement or something like that. There's nothing. I mean, I don't know if that's even offered. I mean, that's something I do.
I mean, I think it'd be great if like boat manufacturers were to offer online training for the retailers to fix these boats, right? Not only is it the right thing to do for the boat, but it's the right thing to do for the store too. I don't know.
Interesting.
We'll see.
So, switching gears here a little bit. Just talking about basic trends? What are you seeing? What are you guys seeing trends in the sport, Matt? From everything to like sea kayak touring, whitewater. What are you seeing out there?
This last year has been pretty hard to see what's going on. We've just been trying to build what's on order for us. Over the last several years, we've seen kind of a decrease in sea kayaking as a push. It's still there, but doesn't have the growth that we've seen historically. And kayak fishing is still growing pretty steadily.
I mean, do you think kayak fishermen are buying dry suits in general as a category, or?
I mean, we've seen increases in like our kayak fishing specific stuff, but I think it's definitely a niche. I would say most kayak fishermen are not buying dry suits, but there seems that there's a growing amount that are, and it seems like those are more like the offshore guys, or really crappy weather season fishing guys. So, but around here, most of the fishermen are out in the ocean or in the bay, so they're using some kind of suit usually. And then water, I don't know. Our whitewater specific stuff seems steady. Again, this year is for us at least is a bad indicator because we've really been trying to play catch up since the pandemic shut down, and we were in March. March 2020. We had to shut down the factory for I think 2 months while we were. We had for Paddle Sports production. We kind of had a skeleton crew in where we were making masks and PPE garments, and then trying to keep up on repairs and stuff. But we had to we had to retrofit the production floor so that we could bring staff back safely. So we had to spread a lot of stuff out. We increased our footprint by about 15%. We had like a neighbor move out, so we grabbed the rest of the building we're in, but we had to knock out some walls and redesign. So,
did you have a chance to read that outside article I sent over?
Yeah, about the shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did.
Are you guys going to be attending any trade shows, or what's kind of your take there?
Yeah, as of today, we're not going to the Big Gear Show, and we're outdoor retailer. We're tentatively going to. We have a booth space. It's a reduced booth space and reduced people going, but that's all subject to change too. It'll depend on how many buyers that we get committed to going or say they're going, and also kind of what the pandemic situation is in August, if we go or not.
How many buyers?
Where are you at?
What's that?
Where are you at on that, Weld?
I mean, I'd love to go back to outdoor retailer, and hearing Coca-Tapped going is a good. I mean, for us, a good sign. I think. I mean, I've made this clear on the show before. I think a centralized trade show is much. I know it sounds antiquated, but I don't think it's a terrible idea. I mean, I don't know what I honestly, and I said this before too. I don't know what they're getting at with the big gun show. I just don't understand it. I mean, they have a couple bike brands. They have a couple outdoor, kayaking brands. They have a couple outdoor brands. No retailer is going to be like, I'm just going to the big gear show. They're still going to have to go to Interbike or whatever. They're still going to have to go to outdoor retailer. I mean, these two guys started the paddle sports show for a couple of years and sort of kicked it to the curb and left it high and dry. I mean, I'd be wary about investing time and money into that show, personally speaking. But they didn't invite us, so we're not going. It's invite only. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I was reading that article and I was trying to.
Matt, do you think I'm out of school on that? Or I mean, I don't want to get you in hot water here, but
Come on, get in some hot water.
We were looking at going to the Big Gear show, but then with OR getting kicked back to the week after the Big Gear show, we had to make good. We knew we weren't going to go to both if they were that close together. So, and we chose to go to the OR because we think we'll have better participation from dealers at that show.
I mean, do you think trade shows are dead? I mean, do you think this is an idea that's on its last gasp here, or
do you miss trade shows?
I do not miss setting up booths and tearing down booths with insane forklift drivers screaming by me at 6 inches away. But I don't think that they're necessarily dead. I don't know if this is the year. I think you got to throw this year away totally just because of the pandemic on what's going on with them. It's. I mean, really, OR's too late at this point for booking. I mean, our preseason deadline is the 15th, which is the Sunday after OR gets over with. Mm-hmm. Like, that's our deadline. But I mean, OR's never really been a writing show for us anyway, where we're writing orders at that show. I mean, by then we've talked to our key guys already and hopefully gotten at least, an idea of what they're interested in for next year, if not actual orders.
Do you think, I mean, you're considering going to OR, or right now you're planning on it. Well, do you have some affinity towards OR, but if
we can meet 70 stores there, it's worth every penny, right? It's worth every penny for us. It's way cheaper to see 70 stores in one place. And I don't care how much a headache the booth is than it is to drive around to 70 stores, right? It's environmentally better. It makes more sense. For retailers, the idea they can see 1,200 different brands that, they're not going to see any place else. Maybe they don't sell hammocks, but all of a sudden they see a bunch of awesome hammocks. Like, oh, geez, I can actually make money here. I mean, that's the value of a trade show, in my opinion. So, yeah, it gets critical mass again. Yeah, I'd go for sure.
If you had to put on the table, bet yes, paddle sports is going to be back, or no, paddle sports is not going to be back, do you think paddle sports will be back in the OR show at some point in the near future?
Me? You're asking me or Matt?
Both of you guys. I mean, you have a better perspective of it than I do. I always thought it was so weird that paddle sports just left, and then that whole thing was just so weird to me. I just never could figure it out.
That's a word for it, yeah.
I guess I don't know. It would depend. Again, it depends on the show date, which fluctuates so much. What happens with the Big Gear show, if it gets traction or not, and where the dealers go. I mean, I'm with John that I think the trade shows there's a place for them, and it's good, especially for buyers to be able to see that many people, but it's the same thing for us. I mean, we're looking at how many buyers are going to go to the show, and does it meet? Is it worth going to see enough people? Like if we're only busy for the first day,
right,
and then we're sitting around for the rest of the time, I don't know that it's really worth it.
I don't think they're coming back.
Well, not on this current track. I mean, we need to get rid of the regional trade shows for one thing. These rep shows, which just cannibalize this whole process. Obviously, the big gear show needs to not be there. But I don't know. My whole theme is that I'm pro retailer. You know, I mean, or at least in so much that I think the very best customer service experience happens at the retailer level, right? And when the relationship is working with the retailer manufacturer, it's great. Where they're writing pre-seasons and taking these pre-seasons, and you know, at that point we can have real discussions on pro daily pricing and you know, if we have a robust wholesaling, back to pro, Matt, I'll definitely get your opinion on this in a second. But and part of that is working in sync in terms of ordering. You know what I mean? Having a centralized meeting place, you know, and some way of setting the clock for our season. And that was outdoor retailer traditionally. You know, that was everyone had their shit ready by as a retailer. That's when it all happened. You know, and we'd be busy 3 3/4 of 4 days there. I mean, slammed every single day, right? I don't know. That's my 2 cents. But who knows? I don't know that. I don't know anyone's offering any kind of leadership in that regard, or anyone cares even. You know, I think it's kind of every man for himself at this point.
Interesting.
Which is going to be, you know, manufacturers going more and more direct.
Yeah.
What do you think about pro dealing? I mean, is pro dealing as a sales channel? I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Matt? I mean, is it getting out of control? Is it in control? Is it hurting the industry? Is it right sized? What?
I think it's a good size for, at least speaking on us personally. It's a good size for us. We offer it to, you know, employees of accounts, and then some other industry employees, but we try to keep it relatively tight. We don't look at it as a revenue stream.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't have like a sales goal on pro deal sales or anything like that. So we're trying to, we do it as a, you know, service to our accounts mostly.
Right.
What's your criteria for that, Will?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, you know, we try to offer pro deal. I mean, obviously store employees. I mean, to me, the basis of a pro deal is store employees. That's first and foremost, right? You know, to help promote your brand within that store and get, you know, help the store employees who really help, you know, make the transaction occur wearing your gear. You know, you do get a lot of pressure though from other manufacturers, you know, who I won't necessarily single out, but who do more of a carpet bombing pro deal, you know, more of a carpet bombing pro deal approach. And you go to these towns where the entire town, you know, every raft guide in the town is getting a pro deal. And you wonder how you're going to deal with that as a manufacturer, you know, like what's the strategy here for sure. So, but I'm not, I mean, my concern with pro deals is just in general, like, you know, like how important I know pro deal is to like most outdoor brands. You know, you hear about outdoor brands getting 30 or 40% of their online sales revenue coming from pro deals, right? I know that's to be true for a lot of companies, especially in the apparel side of things. And I'd see that as a disintegration of the retail infrastructure, you know, and they work together to help screw that up.
Are you guys raising your prices? Either?
We are. For 22. Yeah, we're having slight increases, definitely, with between fabric cost increases, freight increases, and wage increases. We're having to go up a little bit.
What about you, John?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what's going to happen for 2022 yet, but yeah. The problem is I think we should be increasing prices anyway, but just not because of inflation. But I think this time around it's going to be inflation that's driving the price increase, which isn't really helping anybody. So, yeah, I mean, shoot, a 2x4 now is what, $9?
Yeah, I don't know how you can not raise prices.
I mean, transportation costs, like a container from Asia right now is a fortune, right?
Yeah.
So,
Matt, do you guys, like, being based in Arcata, do you feel like you have like infrastructure challenges at all, like just with being based in such a small kind of remote community? I ask you about this because I have a lot of conversations like around, public lands advocacy issues, and there's such a big focus on like rural economic development, as it relates to conservation efforts. And I feel like I've had some really interesting conversations lately about, the challenges of rural economic development because of like a lack of infrastructure, and I think of like where we live as being, here in the Gorge as being like a really small town, but at the same time, we're an hour from an international airport on I-84, close to a big port. Like, do you feel like that plays into your like affects your business much?
Yeah, I think there's effect on transit, travel. I mean, that's a small part, but travel out of the area for staff for work is always a challenge. Like, we have an airport with a direct flight down to San Francisco, but then, I mean, you have to go to San Francisco pretty much, or drive out. And then most of our raw materials and outsourced stuff comes into the Oakland port, and then getting it up to us, it's just an increased transportation cost for that. So, but other infrastructure stuff, I mean, besides like high speed internet limitations that they're trying to get into the county, we've got the local business community and the town is very supportive of us, and so we don't see any limitations there. I think it's mostly transportation in and out of Humboldt County, really.
Got it.
Recruiting, we can find good employees and retain employees in this area, so that's the main thing for a company, I think, is just getting employees.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a big part of the story we like to tell about, conservation and outdoor recreation is like, it makes people want to live in these communities, right? Like, it's like you live in a desirable location, and it's important.
What do you want to tell dry suit customers out there from a customer service standpoint?
Yeah, how long is a Coca-Tapped dry suit dry?
And what happens if I call you and say my suit is soaking wet, and you test it and it's not leaking anywhere? What can you tell me to make me not angry?
To make you not angry, John? I don't know.
Well, I'm just like Joe Kayaker.
Ask how much you sweat in a day. I don't. It's very. I mean, each suit is a case by case, basis. How much? It's not. It's never a time frame of how long a suit's good for. It's always a use and how well or how it's been cared for. If you're paddling in the thing every day and you store it wet in the trunk of your car, then it's going to have a lot lower lifespan than if you use it, once a week and you hang it up and rinse it off and dry it every time. And also, what you're doing in it while you're paddling is like someone sea kayaking could, if they're not rinsing it and they're in salt water all the time and rolling around on the beach afterwards, that could get a lot of holes in it. But if you're being careful, you're not walking around the put-in without shoes on the gravel. There's a lot you can do to keep your suit dry. By just kind of taking care of it a little bit.
But hold on a minute.
How do we make one we don't have to do that?
But this suit is brand new. I mean, I just bought it from you guys, and I had a bomber gear suit that was dry for like 20 years, right? And now my arms are soaked right here, and I'm damp all in the chest. And I know this thing it's coming right through the fabric, right through. What are you gonna do for me?
We're gonna have to get it in and test it, and then if it's not,
gonna pay for this?
If I can't figure it out,
send me a call
I'll
tag?
send it to IR.
Can I get a new one? Oh, it's so funny. Well, I remember a long time ago, somebody sent in a dry suit that was leaking, and you sent me images, like microscopic images or something, of thorns and stuff going through the suit or something. Do you remember that?
No. How long ago was it?
I can't remember.
I'll be perfectly honest. If you go back like 15 years, we sucked at making dry suits. Right. So it could have been any number of things. I mean, we're doing a lot better nowadays, but.
Do you have any of like the original Blue Puma gear around? Do you have any like relics around, Matt?
Yeah, we've got kind of like the vault of old stuff. We've got this. We used to have. I'm spacing the name, but our insulation stuff, and the fabric we used was like carpet padding, or like industrial carpeting, but it was like a polyester, fabric, and that's what we used for our, like our bunny suit stuff. And we've got a top from that. We've got some really short board shorts that have like a 1/4 inch inseam on them.
Well, let me tell you, you should set up an NFT for these original products. Sell them through a non-fungible token.
That's the way it works. What was the worst product Coca-Tapped ever made?
Oh.
And if you're completely honest, I can probably think about the worst product we ever made.
He's like, I'm gonna hurt some feelings right here.
I have some feelings.
Don't say it, Matt.
The worst
Well's
product
gonna get you
I
in
worked
trouble.
on, or the worst product that actually got.
Come on, throw somebody under the bus right now. You put this thing out to the stores, and it was junk.
Because listen, everybody makes mistakes. Apple Computer,
right.
Coca-Tapped, even IR. I know it's hard to imagine, but
Dude, I remember the first dry suit that you ever sent us, well, a long time ago. And we wore this thing on the Stikine. We got to Site Z camp, and literally he took his dry suit off and poured out buckets of water from each foot. It was amazing.
I know. It breaks my heart to think about that.
It was amazing.
I think we dipped our foot into skirts for a few years, and that was a disaster.
What was the name of that skirt?
I can see that. Not because it's you guys, but just in general. What's up with Rich? What happened with Rich at Snapdragon? Speaking of skirts, you guys know him better than we do.
I'm not sure. I haven't talked to him since they closed down.
I wrote him an email just making sure it was true and saying if there's anything, there's obviously nothing I can do to help, but expressing my sadness if that's really the case, but. The worst product we ever made was I think the Full Conditions dry top with Johnny Kern.
I had one of those. It was awesome.
It was the first one we made. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. We did not know what the hell we were doing. They were awful. We replaced them all too, just so people know. We didn't make anyone sit in those things. We knew they were bad. I mean, 2 weeks after we made them, we knew they were bad.
I remember coming into the shop in Confluence and meeting. That was when I first met Johnny, and he was like designing that thing. I thought it looked really cool, and I was at the same time.
Yeah, that's what we used to think you could make, like do all these crazy patterns and curves and patches and all this crap, and it would be awesome.
Looked really cool. And I remember I cut out a couple of dry tops at the time, like to make skirts or to make like dry decks for slalom with Snapdragon skirts on them. Yeah. And it was like that very first fabric that you were using for the semi-dry tops.
Yeah.
And I wore those things for years, man, but they leak like towel, but I wore them for years.
You have a much different threshold than modern customer. Matt, do you remember, see if I can have the story right. Do you remember, I think you and I had both tested that Polar Tech waterproof breathable fabric. It was like Neo Shell or something.
The Neo Shell, yeah.
And it was awful. I mean, I know we tested it. I mean, we would write on a pen, what samples it was, how we were washing and stuff like that. And it would leak right through the pen marks. It was so bad. I mean, this is as bad gets. And we immediately, like after an hour, realized this stuff was a non-starter, and then we kind of wrote it off. And then I think you guys probably did the same thing. And then when Bomber Gear had a new designer, after Rick Franken really, tragically passed away, the original owner of it, they had they sort of headhunted this new owner, and they came out to retailer with a complete line of Neo Shell drywear, dry tops, dry suits, paddling pants, paddling jackets, women's dry suits. And I remember Matt running over to our booth being like, did you see what Polar or what Bomber Gear is doing? I'm like, I saw. And you see this moment where like these people are buying this stuff and it's all going to fall apart. And this is going to be the end of this brand. This is going to be literally the end of the brand. And there's kind of like, what do we do? Do we say something? Do we not say something? I mean, trash talking another brand like that's kind of catty and comes off really bad. But do you remember that?
I do remember that. I remember, and poor guys.
Yeah, yeah.
All I can think is their fabric rep must have been the best salesman ever.
Well, if you came from Under Armour, wherever the guy came from, and someone came to you and did a bunch of pump cup tests and they're like, look how breathable it is. You'd be like, oh, sold. That's what we want.
Right. Do you want the undercoating with that? The extended warranty. Maybe. Hopefully they got the extended warranty.
Yeah.
Well, Matt.
Yeah, I do remember that.
I hate to cut this interview off, guys, but we are way over time.
Oh.
Sorry.
We're just going to start getting into some industry gossip.
I know. I can see where this is going, and somebody's going to get somebody in trouble. I'm just telling you. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Hey, my pleasure.
Thank you.
It's good talking to you guys.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing that NFT sooner than later. All right, my man. We got to run. Sorry, guys.
See you guys.
Bye, Matt.
Thanks.
All right.
Guys, sorry. Sage is getting ready to run. We're almost a half hour late. I don't even know how this happens.
We're always late.
We're always so late.
And you guys are always early on the call. It's always like, all right, we're jumping on at 11. You guys are 10:45 without fail. You're like, we're on.
It was such a junk show getting Sage, typical Hammer Factor. I'm lining everything up last minute. It's like I'm putting my kids to bed last night and I'm trying to line up the time with Sage and I'm messing up East Coast time with Pacific Coast time. And she's like, are you sure you're telling me the right thing? And I'm like, what on earth?
No, he's not.
Hi, guys. How's it going?
Hey, Sage. Welcome to Hammer Factor.
Thanks.
Nice sponsorship tag there.
Well, I'm in the middle of training laps. I keep messing up this one gate, so I figured I'd hop right back on after this.
Right. We just got off the phone with Matt Porter at Coca-Tapped. Do you know Matt?
Yeah, I know Matt.
Yeah.
Just on.
He's
awesome.
Oh, awesome. He's super awesome.
Him and Weld, it was like glory days. I mean, it was high school reunion or something. I couldn't even tell what was going on there for a while.
That's awesome.
Matt and I, we have confabs at these trade shows. That's one of the reasons we need to have trade shows, so Matt and I can get back together for our sessions. A lot of important decisions being made.
Oh, God. Well, Sage Donnelly, under 21 female paddler of the year, dagger athlete. I believe U.S. slalom team, U.S. team member at one time, or currently maybe?
Not currently. I actually didn't go to team trials this year. So this is the first year, and I think 5 or 6 years that I'm not on the U.S. slalom team or U.S. freestyle team.
Okay.
So what's going to happen with slalom in the U.S.? I just ran into Sarah Bond, who, I don't know if you guys know her, but I know Geltman does. And she's looking at going back to work for the ACA or something, basically refuting everything that Hipgrave was saying about slalom in the U.S. and saying it still has a chance, and Hipgrave has it all wrong.
I would say U.S. Slalom definitely does still have a chance. We have been seeing, like, at team trials, there's definitely been a few new faces every year, and it's been increasing from last time I went. Like I said, this is the first year that I'm missing it, so I didn't actually really pay attention to the numbers at this team trials, but I think there's still a lot of development in it. It definitely could be much better, and it definitely could be at a risk of kind of dying out a little bit, but I still think we still have a chance to have, like, a strong slalom base in the U.S. And yeah, there's still you see kids entering and starting just in slalom, especially out east. There's definitely not much out west, but still, like, there's my local course on the South Fork of the American River. There's still some kids who have been getting into it, and we actually our slalom population down there has been growing, but unfortunately none of them are really racing because we don't have coaches or anything or a race series out in the west. But I definitely don't think it's dead.
So the top of the game, whitewater wise, how much does slalom play into that? I mean, right? I mean, how much better of a whitewater paddler can you be if you're training slalom?
I think slalom has helped me worlds when it comes to whitewater kayaking. I started in freestyle and creek boating when I was pretty young, and as soon as I started doing slalom, I started doing it when I was 8, but I didn't start seriously training and competing until I was 14. And as soon as I did, you can see a huge difference in my paddling. It helps you on with your technical skills. It helps you with your strengths. And yeah, I think if anyone is wanting to improve their kayaking, it's definitely a really great way to quickly improve. And then once you get back into your plastic boat, you'll notice a huge difference just with, like, stroke placement and how you're edging and feeling and using the water. I think it's a super good developmental thing to do.
How old are you now, Sage?
I'm 20 years old.
20 years old. When do you turn 21?
July 22nd this year, so it's soon.
Okay. Cool. So 14 and now. Well, let's just get right into your Untouchable line and everything that happened there, because we were just talking to Lewis. He keeps walking it. I've walked it like a dozen times. Did you put on... Okay, first, let me start from the top. If you don't know what this rapid is, Lewis, can you describe the rapid? Because you didn't really describe it, because a lot of us know what it is, but I think we're taken for granted. Like, how much does it drop? What's the place like? Is it committing?
It's like a, I don't know, like a 40-foot cascading gnarly drop that looks like the left wall is going to take your head off, with, like, a huge curler right on the lip, and then a brief moment to get your act together, and then a hole and a really hard left to right move in front of, like, about a 15-footer that's dropping into a powerful hole with this horrible looking pocket on the left wall. Does that do it some justice?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like one of those rapids
chaos.
that you get to when you're like, people run this? Like, that's nuts. You know? Like...
So did you put on that day with the intent, of running that rapid? Who were you with? How did it all happen? Because I'm intrigued.
So I'll start from the beginning. Last year, I was able to do my first Fantasy Falls trip, and I actually, unfortunately, watched someone have a pretty gnarly line on it, and it actually completely turned me off from the rapid, and I had absolutely no intention of running it, probably ever. It wasn't really a thought in my head for a while, and then I convinced Ben Stooksbury to come down and paddle in California with me this year, and we ended up hiking into a bunch of stuff, and including we were the first fantasy trip. So we did 2 trips where we hiked in, and just, it was super fun. It was great to be back on the river, and it really gave me, like, a whole new, look on fantasy itself, because it had been an interesting trip my first time, and it definitely left me with some negatives for that run in general. So it was really cool to get back in there with Ben, and just, it literally gave me a whole new outlook on it. And it's actually one of my favorite rivers now. I love it. But so we did 2 trips. And then I went in, Ben took some days off. I went in and I ran Royal Gorge with some people, and I got off Royal Gorge, and I'm not entirely sure what made me think of Untouchables, but I was just driving home and I kind of thought about it, and I was like, I need to go into fantasy and I need to run Untouchables. So I got back. I was like, Ben, we should go do fantasy. We got this awesome crew. I was able to lead down. My really good friend, Melissa DeMarie, she is the owner of Cali Collective. And then so we had Jason Hale, her, Rusty Sage, and Ben Stooksbury. So it was pretty much the dream crew. And we went in there, and we did a super mellow trip. The first 2 days felt amazing. We paddled down to the log 20 rapid, I believe it's called. It's like that 15-footer you see with the log in it. We paddled down there and we camped, and I went to bed, and I felt so good. And in my head, I knew, I was like, I'm going to run Untouchables tomorrow. So the next morning we woke up, I still felt good. We had a pretty short paddle down, maybe less than a half mile, probably a quarter mile down. And we got there, and I was looking at it, and my first impression was like, oh my God, I don't want to run this. It's scary. And then I kept looking at it, and one of my favorite things to do is, really just sit next to a rapid and look at the crux moves and look at the consequences and look at how the water pulses and just really get an understanding for it. And I was looking at it, I was like, I'm going to do it. So I walked back up to the top, and Ben had kind of been hemming and hawing about doing it as well. And we each actually walked up at the same time. He was like, are you going to do it right now? I was like, yeah. And he's like, perfect. I'll let everyone know. And so we had everyone set up down at the bottom for safety. And I got in the eddy, and I was actually my blood sugar is kind of low. So not many people know this, but I'm a type 1 diabetic. So I was actually getting in my boat, and I got an insulin pump, and it checks my blood sugar for me. And I got a little notification. It was like, your blood sugar is getting low. And I was like, whew, that's not good. So luckily I sat in an eddy, waited forever, ate some goo and got it back up. And I was like, okay, I still feel good. I'm going to run it. So I, did the little, I'm going, Ben, and Ben let everyone else know, and then peeled out from the eddy, and then it was time.
You talk about that first trip down there when somebody had a sketchy line and whatever. What were the dynamics? And then you talked about the dream team, and there was just such a positive vibe. What was the difference in those? Was it just the crews, or was it, what do you think caused that difference in dynamics?
The crew definitely helped, but also I think I've grown a lot as a paddler in the last year for sure. I kind of came back. I've always creek boated, but I've never really tested or pushed my limits very much in creek boating. So I came back last year from COVID and, kind of started getting back into creek boating, and, I was really having fun. And last year, my year really started after I ran Selway Falls. And that was one of the highest, I think, female descents of the rapid ever done. So that really made me feel super good and confident about myself. And then later that year, I ran Big Falls on the South Fork of the Payette at high water as well. And so just kind of building that confidence up and knowing wow, okay, I can make these must-make moves. I knew I had the skill to, but I can do it under the pressure and have that confidence in myself to know that, I can go into these really hard rapids and these really technical moves and actually be able to, put down the line. I think that really boosted my confidence. And then just, I don't know, I can look at a rapid most of the time, and I can just, if I see the line, it's this very strange feeling. A lot of times I can see the line, but it's but what if? But sometimes I just go into a river and I look at a rapid. I'm like, yeah, I see the line. There's no what if. I know exactly where I'm going to go. I'm going to go right there. I'm going to take this stroke, and then I can go for it. And so far, knock on wood, I've been able to do the line that I see every time.
You certainly did at that time at Untouchables. That was.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm just going to say that's the cleanest line I've ever seen through that rapid.
Thank you so much.
Video or anything. So big props on that. So type 1 diabetes, when did you find out you had this?
So I was actually diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 3 years old. So I've pretty much lived my whole life not really knowing any difference. And then when I was 8, I was actually diagnosed with celiac disease, which means my body can't process wheat, rye, barley, or oats. And then when I turned 11, I was then diagnosed with hypothyroid, which means my thyroid doesn't produce any hormones. So yes, I've been dealing with internal body issues my entire life, pretty much.
Oh man. So, I mean, are you constantly managing that? How does that work? Are you minute by minute having to do it? I don't know anything about it. So I just know you have that meter that's on your hip. I mean, Forgive me for being ignorant.
Yeah, so no worries. So I actually, it's been really nice this year. I have gotten on what's called a continuous glucose monitor. So that is another needle that's attached to me, and that actually sends blood sugar readings to my pump. And the pump I have now, it actually will, it's called a closed loop system. So it'll do a lot of the work for me. So when it sees that my blood sugar is starting to trend up and go high, it'll give me some insulin. It's really nice. It has this activity mode that shoots to, estimate to keep my blood sugar higher. But especially on these multi-day river trips, it's really hard just because, you're moving so much and you're using so much energy that I pretty much have to continuously eat all day, or I just won't be able to keep enough food in my system to keep my blood sugars up. So I keep Gatorade in my boat at all times, and just will chug that pretty much at every flat spot or every and then as much food as I can eat at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it is a lot of managing. I do bonk a lot. It's definitely harder on these multi-day river trips because it's just day after day after day trying to just keep food in your system as much as you can. But I've been lucky. Like boating with Ben has been really great because he helps me a lot. Like he's really started to understand, what my body does and how much recovery time I need. And he's really mellow with all of that, which has been really nice. So just, having a good crew helps a lot. But it's definitely hard, and it adds a whole other side to every trip I do because it's a lot of preparation, and I pretty much am constantly thinking about it when I'm on the water.
And so do you have to do you fill your crew in when you're out there? Is this like you have like a group talk beforehand and so everybody is on the same page kind of thing?
I try to. It's definitely a little harder, especially if I get on just a random kind of crew that I'm not super familiar with. Even explaining it, it's like, okay, my blood sugar is going to get low sometimes, and I'm going to have to stop, and I'm going to have to wait about 15 minutes. And they understand, but it is definitely harder until they actually see it happening for them to kind of grasp and understand what's going on. Because especially a lot of times, if we're doing a super long day and my blood sugar gets low, it's like a full on like crash. Like even if, I eat some food and it comes back up, it's normally such a steep and sudden thing because it's good, and then it just drops. That I'll be pretty pooped for a while, and it'll take me a while to recover. And I think that's kind of hard for some people to understand. So it's definitely just kind of talking a lot, and I try to communicate a lot about it. And there's a little safety talk before of hey, if for some reason I pass out or, in the rare case, or I'm just completely not making sense and not, with it, I can carry this thing called glucagon in my dry bag, and I tell them how to administer it if something does happen. But the good news is it's pretty hard for me to get there just because, I'm thinking about it so much and I'm doing so much prep work for it. But yes, there's a lot of talk about it beforehand.
I have a similar conversation before I get on the river with people too, but it's not diabetes related. I just let people know that things can go horribly wrong. I may not be coherent. I may not be making sense. I may pass out.
If I flip over and don't come back up, please save me.
So what's the plans for paddling? I mean, how much are you going to be, is the goal here to be a full-time paddler, or are we going to school, or how are we going to, is there a balance, or are we just going full on kayaking?
So I'm kind of trying to figure all that out right now. With slalom, my goal had been to go to the Olympics, but basically I came back home. I was living in the UK training, and I came back home because of COVID last year and got back in my creek boat and realized that that's what I love and what I want to do is, kind of more expedition, big whitewater stuff. So right now I am going to work part-time this summer as a raft guide in Idaho, so I can start getting ready for the North Fork Championships. But beyond that, I haven't really planned too much. I'm graduating from Western Nevada College this semester, so I should be getting my diploma any day now, which will be really nice. And then I think after that, I want to hopefully start a photography business. So I'm going to be taking some business classes for that as well. So yeah, kind of just taking slow steps, but as of right now, I am mainly just a kayaker.
So who are your main sponsors right now? Obviously Coca-Tapped.
Yeah, Coca-Tapped.
Yeah.
I'm just switched to Team Dagger last year, so it's been amazing. I'm on the Warner team, Honey Stinger. The list got shorter. And I'm also. I think that's about it. Sorry, it's been a while since I've had to list my sponsors out.
And that means you're kayaking and not worrying about it. That's perfect.
Right.
Exactly.
What are you training for right now, Sage?
Yeah.
I am currently in Montana. The Big Fork race starts tonight at 4:30. There's a boater cross, and then tomorrow there's slalom through this. It's an awesome river. It's super big whitewater. They're gonna have a slalom race through it, and then a giant slalom as well. And I think the combination of your results are all put together for an overall result, which will be really cool. And then after that, I'm gonna go down to Idaho and start training for the North Fork Championships.
Cool. That sounds like a cool format.
It's really cool. Yeah, it's awesome. It's been so long. I've just been California creeking. It's amazing to be on a river and not hit rocks.
So what's the vibe like? Does it feel back to normal up there? Is good attendance?
Oh, yeah, super good attendance. There's a lot of paddlers here. It's going to be really fun.
Awesome.
So what's going on with Red Bull? Are we signing with Red Bull soon? Have you looked at that?
I'm not sure yet. I haven't really looked at it. It's definitely kind of been something I've been thinking about this year, but I think I'm going to wait till after NFC, see if I can get some good results behind me, and then maybe reach out.
Right.
See if they'll have me.
Are you going to beat Adrian in the green race?
Good question.
You know, Adrian is amazing, and hopefully someday I can put a run together that might be faster than hers, but any day I get to go head-to-head with her is awesome.
That's a yes. I heard yes.
You're going to have to work hard. She's fast.
Well, I'll see you out at North Fork. We're going to do live coverage of that event this year.
Awesome.
So
That's going to be great.
I'm not sure you should tell anybody that, so I'm not sure it's public yet, but anyway.
So what creek boat are you paddling right now?
Currently, for this race, I'm going to be using the Dagger Phantom. For NFC, I might be using the Code. I'm not too sure yet, but I'm basically between the Dagger Rewind, the Phantom, and the new Code.
Yeah, I mean, from a manufacturing standpoint, we've seen, I don't want to use the word explosive because I feel it's a cliche, but we've seen just a lot of growth in women in kayaking.
Yes, it's amazing. There's actually so many women at this race. It's been a long time since I've been to a creek race, and normally it'd be maybe me and one other girl. But it's amazing. There's been a huge increase, it seems like. Yeah,
and not just participation, but in terms of what they're doing. I mean, obviously you're running Untouchables is a great example of that. It's no longer like a divide between what women and guys are doing on the river. It's quickly becoming basically exactly the same thing. But what we need boats that are right sized, you know what I mean, for someone who's 125, 130 pounds, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I completely agree. So that's actually why I'm with Dagger now, is because they just released the small code, and it's actually, so my experience in the past with creek boats is they either make one size and it's too big for women, or they'll make a small size in a boat, but it won't be a good creek boat. It'll be more kind of like a beginner boat. So when Dagger said that they were making a creek boat that was going to come in a small, and it was actually like a good creek boat, I was able to try the prototype. It made me super, super excited to be with a company like that. And yeah, I was able to give back some feedback on the small code, and that's kind of been my little love child for the winter. And yeah, I just got the first production small, and it's amazing. It has great volume in the front, super hard edges, so it's really nimble and easy to paddle. And then you paddle in and it doesn't feel massive on you, and it doesn't take a lot of effort to paddle, so it's really cool.
Are you nervous about committing to a boat brand? I mean, obviously, if you're going to commit to a boat brand, you can do a lot worse than Dagger. I mean, they obviously have a huge roster of talent there, but I mean, I know a lot of paddlers are nervous about that because maybe boat company X is going to have a much better boat for them, and they want to compete in that boat, or they want to run the Untouchables in that exact boat. You know what I mean? Do you think there's a liability there, or do you think that's something you can negotiate without too much problem?
Honestly, for me, I put a lot of thought into the brands that I want to be associated with. So I don't just, jump into it and be like, this is it, and just kind of go for it. I talk to them and I see like what their future goals are and everything like that. And, Dagger is definitely an all-inclusive company where they want, every single person to be out on the water, happy with the boat that they're in. So that made me really want to be a part of their company. And yeah, they're super into, all feedback from everyone and actually taking that into consideration. So yeah, I mean, I definitely wasn't nervous about committing to them, to answer your question.
What's your paddle offset, your blade offset?
My paddle offset, so right now I creek with a 30 degree, but I race with a 60 degree.
What kind of length are you rocking?
I use a 195.
195 for both.
So I really like the Odachi. That's what I've been paddling like pretty much nonstop.
Well,
All right. You made the cut. This interview will remain. You didn't know it.
Shoot. Well, I'm glad I passed.
Well, I went out and bought a Phantom after I saw that Untouchables line, so I got one of those.
Awesome. It's a great boat. I love it.
You bought the same size one?
Yeah, exactly. I just got the same color and everything, and then printed a poster.
Boat I want.
Honestly, if you just want to come, take my Phantom, I'm sure she knows how to run Untouchables now. If you want to take her down for a lap, she's good.
God. I'm not doing it.
I'd like to see
I'm
that.
not doing it. I'm not doing it.
You wouldn't need a spray skirt.
Come on, surf ski boy. What are you talking about?
Right.
Oh, man. Well, I don't know, Sage. I mean, thanks so much for coming on the show. I know you're in your gear and getting ready to get out on the water right now.
Hey, I'm super happy to be on here. And yeah, thank you so much for, tolerating me showing up in my gear. Sorry about that.
No, I love it. It's
Perfect.
true hammer factor.
Yeah.
All right, boys. You got anything else before we let Sage get back on the water?
No, I have a whole bunch of stuff we could get into, but save for another time.
Yep. Yeah, we'll have you come back
I want
on.
to know about social media. Like, how does social media fit into the modern paddler? Like, what are we doing? How does your personal life and social media intersect with your professional life and social media? But that's a big question. We should set that aside. Unless you have a really quick answer.
I can have a decently fast answer if you'd like.
All right. Yeah, let's hear it.
So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of social media. I think it's a lot of effort and a lot of it's pretty fake. So my goal, and not necessarily kayaking, I just think a lot of stuff on social media is kind of fake in general. But my whole goal. But
sponsors demand it, though. I mean, this is something you have to do as an athlete. You have no choice.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So my whole goal with my social media is to be just really real about it and show what I'm doing. And I've tried to get a lot better. I've been horrible about getting photos and film of myself, so I've been working on that a lot. And yeah, so just I don't really pay attention to what time I post and all of that stuff. Like I think a lot of the influencers do. I'm pretty sure that's a thing. But yeah, I like to show what I'm doing and what I definitely want to be like a platform to try to inspire like other diabetics and other women to show them what they can be doing and hopefully get them out there. So yeah, I like to show off, what I'm doing and just be real and honest. And, I think it's been really cool. Ben did some awesome videos of me, like running my kayak in and, testing my blood sugar and eating food. And I think like all of that's super cool and just, sharing my life and just being like real about it.
God.
Well, there we go.
Real indeed. Man, I'll tell you what, when we get you back, I'd love to get into where your drive comes from and like what gets you up early in the morning and just all kinds of things, but that's a whole different conversation. We're going to have a whole panel for that.
I will come back anytime.
All right, Sage, we'll get back to it. Thank you so much. And
thank you guys.
Yeah, sure. We'll catch you in a few weeks in Idaho.
Sounds great. See you then.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye, Sage.
Bye.
Awesome. I mean, come on, that's pretty inspiring. Look at the roadblocks in front of her, and she's like, what? It's not stopping me.
Yeah, I just like to see... I'm just like to see that market opening up in the way that it is. And I mean that in a sincere way. You know what I mean? I do.
Lewis, you had to
it's
laugh.
good for
because
everybody,
it's so
right?
well. Yeah.
It's
I mean, having women paddling at that level is good for everybody.
I mean, did Alec Voorhees win the Whitewater Awards Line of the Year for Untouchables? Just like he's the current winner, I believe. Like that was the line of the year, and like Sage's line on that same rapid was like every bit as good as like what was the best men's line of the year voted by allegedly the best kayakers in the world. Like
and you talk about her training slalom in Europe and England. If that didn't have something to do with that, I would
Oh,
eat
I
this microphone.
guarantee it did, dude. Hard work, incremental improvements. I mean, come on, dude. That's a shining example right there we just had on the show. I don't know. I'm inspired.
Let's do viewer mail because we have to make a phone call here.
All right. Did I get logged into Trello? All right. This comes at us.
Let's do the email about the guy with the boat molds first.
Okay.
Because I thought that was a great email. Looking for.
Okay. To answer this question, we're going to bring in Shane Benedict, who I'm sure has a pile of old molds somewhere who can answer this.
I'm imagining they're in his living room.
I may lose you guys here, but if I don't know this is complicated making a call from Skype, so we'll see.
This is Shane Benedict of Liquid Logic, and I would say contributor to the Hammer Factor.
Oh, wait a second. Wait a second.
There he is.
Wait a second.
Got him.
Wait a second.
Oh, look at that.
Look at this hippie.
So before we get too far, I'm going to add another play boat into this. We should pull out of the graveyard. We're picturing Shane. We're picturing all these boat molds, by the way, in your living room, in your house. But I'm saying the Session Plus.
I know where you're going because I saw it at IR just the other day, and I was like, ooh.
My kid took that Session Plus to the last semester world class. Big hit. Big hit.
So retro.
People were into the cartwheeling for sure.
So, Shane, do you have any idea what we're talking about? Welcome to the show, Shane Benedict, designer at Liquid Logic Kayaks, long-time Hammer Factor contributor. So we had a question about old molds. Basically, what happens to them? Why can't we just throw out some old molds and make it happen?
For starters, they are put out to pasture, basically.
Like, where's the Mr. Clean mold right now, do you reckon? If I wanted to do a production run of Mr. Cleans, where would I get a hold of that mold?
My feet hope that mold is gone. My feet still ache in that boat. I'm sure it's in a landfill somewhere, or it got recycled.
But I mean, I've been to the factory. There are a bunch of old molds on racks all over the place. Like, Can we just pull one of those off the shelf and pop it out?
I wish that it were that easy. Just getting a mold to start running correctly after sitting around for a really long time can be a real challenge. We can certainly do it, and we have done it in the past. And there's always been some craze. Oh, we got to bring back this boat, and we got to bring that boat, and then we did it with the Hefes actually, and there was huge fanfare about a run of Hefes, and I think we might have sold 10.
Right. Right. I think people get these boats and they forget how much they sucked. Not Hefe specifically, but some of these old boats were pretty terrible.
I have that experience. I mean, man, I loved the Wave Sport Frankenstein. I loved that boat, and I got back in it. I don't know. It was probably 10 years ago, and I paddled it on the upper yacht, and I got down to Bastard, and I was so uncomfortable I had to trade boats to somebody else. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't know how this was I don't know what's. Yeah, it's just not what you remember.
I had the same thing. I was thinking about the Super Sport is my example. I loved the Super Sport when it first came out, and I just absolutely loved it. And I got down to the Foodle-Foo, and I was down there for a long time, and I was kind of got bored, and I was like, hey, I want to try. They've got a Super Sport over there. This is going to be wicked. I almost died on the river.
I mean, half of these old boats, my skirt won't even fit them. It just hangs over the edge of it. It's like putting a blanket over the boat.
So, I mean, is there a window? I mean, so basically the big problem is these molds it's too much work to pull these molds off the shelf if they're even still around to dust them off and get them working again. It's just not worth the effort.
I mean, that's it. That's a huge part of it. And then breaking it in, it could take. I mean, really, it could take like 10 cycles to get it to run a decent boat. I mean, you could also get lucky and it might run one the first off, but 10 cycles, that's a whole day basically to try to get it running, and that's a lot of oven time, a lot of people time, all that.
Right.
And so you got to feel fairly confident that you've got enough sales to make all that worthwhile.
I mean, a Kickstarter, so it would have to
also,
come with.
They have
to front the money.
Also, you're pushing aside other production at how it's going right now. There's only a finite amount of production available, and to try to bring something in and mess up production for a day is a big deal, especially this time right now.
Right.
Yeah, and so in the past, we've done all the one. The question always is session plus, really.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there was a cycle in time where we recycled stuff, and those got recycled, and that's a sad.
Oh, dude, you could have sold a dozen of those.
You could have sold 10.
We always talk about tens. Yeah, we could have sold tens of them.
Tens of them.
If you had,
I know that one.
If you had that mold around, you could sell an NFT for that mold. I guarantee it, dude. Non-fungible token.
It's not a digital download.
It doesn't have to be a digital thing. It's a certificate of ownership. You can do it with like art and paintings and whatever. Trust me.
Can we talk about moving forward instead of looking in the past? Can we just do that for a minute?
Let's do that.
Where are we going with whitewater boat designs in Liquid Logic? What's happening? My kid has an alpha and loves it, by the way.
I'm sorry, what was that?
My kid has an alpha and loves it, by the way.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah, he's very pro alpha.
Does he have the big one or the smaller one?
He's got to be the little one.
Yeah, he's 16.
I don't know. Where should boat design go with Liquid Logic? What should we do next?
You liked how you flipped that around on you there, Weld?
I think you need to do an updated half-slice boat that can run a little bit harder whitewater. That feels more
at home. You should go the other direction. I think it should be 10 feet long with more of like a planey hull, like a surfy, pivoty boat, but faster, longer.
My updated Super Sport.
If it's like a
in the front,
high performance BRAP, I would use it as my primary boat in most cases. But my second or third boat at that, a third boat probably, right? And then you gain sort of rarefied territory there.
Yeah. Now, I mean, the 10-foot boat sounds so fun, and I know I would love it, but I agree. I don't want to haul that thing around all the time. I mean, it would be super fun, but I'd be like, I want to get that lighter boat.
I mean, do you guys consider that? I mean, you're designing a boat. I mean, at some point, there's only so many people who own 3 or 4 whitewater boats, right? And you're taking a small audience and make it even smaller. And now you're making a boat for a very small crowd. And most of the people are getting on a pro deal anyway, or some form of pro deal. I mean,
I think you're making that.
Or no?
You're making this into a self-fulfilling prophecy with the pro deals. It's like everybody's listening to the podcast and they're like, well, John Weld says everybody's getting a pro deal. I should be getting a pro deal too. Like,
no, I'm saying people buying 10-foot long half-slice boats are getting a pro deal. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
And then there's a couple of Adonis who want to be like the cool kids and they're getting them too.
No, I mean, I definitely feel like you definitely have to hit your bases, and we're certainly due for a new half-slice boat. That's for sure, because that's a major. Would
you go more planing hull?
Niche in our niche, yeah.
Would you go more planing hull this time, right? I mean,
that would be the fun way to go, especially for surfing, that kind of stuff. That's and planing hulls are all the rage right now.
Right, just that's corn. And how about creek boats? What are we doing with the creek boat? I mean, right now, like out here,
we're living on the Alpha because we've just gotten rave reviews back, so we're gonna just keep riding that.
Okay, all right. I'm trying to help you here, but you're not letting me.
I appreciate
it. Out here, it's the OG, right? Now I know that boat doesn't translate well necessarily to the East Coast, but that's what it is out here.
Yeah, no doubt.
And what do they do right, and what are they doing wrong with that boat?
Well, I mean, what to be honest, I haven't paddled one. But what I see when I watch the videos is I see a boat that's floating high. Yeah. It looks. So therefore, it's just easy to handle. If you're floating high, you can move the boat around. Yeah. The bows up high. And that's been a really cool revelation in the last few years. Well, more than the last few years, but that's awesome. It's cool. It makes things easier. A lot of you know Eric Neese. he was just in the shop picking up an Alpha, and he was just like, I got to get an Alpha, man, because that just makes it easier. Just I feel one grade better,
Right.
And so that's a cool, revelation in the last few years for sure. And those are the two main things I notice, that on top of the water maneuverability and big bow rocker. Those are the obvious features that I see.
Shannon,
That's how I feel in the Alpha. In an Alpha 90, that's how I feel.
That thing just goes over everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
What happened to the whole fear of big bow rock? Like we talked about this even in the 90s about being a little scared of that because of the waterfall trend. What happened to big bow rocker being okay now?
Well, I mean, I think it's just...
I mean, people are breaking their backs for one thing. I mean, that's kind of what happened. I mean, didn't Tyler talk about this? How like the Nomad just was better because it just pierced the base better.
But now those guys are all running big waterfalls with big bow rocker boats, aren't they? I mean, that's what I'm seeing.
No, I'm with you.
I'm seeing people get hurt too. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah. I think that like it's hard to make a boat for waterfalls because it's going to be totally different than 99.9% of the other stuff that you're doing.
Right.
Yeah, totally agree. But that's totally what kept us away from that rocker for so long. It was the worry everybody had. All the people running 100-foot waterfalls.
Right. You need to make a waterfall boat for that crowd.
So
yeah.
God, we're just getting off on a tangent here, but let's just
Sorry
go with
about
it. So let's say you got your boats. Okay. So what do you think your first boat you're going to get? And I'll just kind of tell you mine. The first boat you're going to get is like your shit running boat, like your like go anywhere boat. Hang on, let me finish before you go. And then your second boat is going to be play boat or half slice. For me, it's going to be a half slice. I'm going to skip out on the play boat. And then my third boat is going to be a race boat. Race boat and and whatever. But I mean, what are your guys' three? What's your number one, Gelman? You were shaking your head when I said creek boat.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends who it is, right? Like it's but like I feel like if people who are starting in the sport, to me, it's like I feel like you're missing out on learning and missing out on fun if you're starting in like a really big, easy to paddle creek boat. It's like I would say number one boat should be like your half slice almost.
Right.
And like that's the boat I paddle almost all the time now. So like I guess I would say that's like your number one boat, and then your number two boat is like your expedition boat. Like your easiest to paddle creek boat that you can put overnighter gear in. And then the third boat is obviously a surf ski.
If I live out east, it's the half slice. From out here, it's definitely the creek boat first. But they're close, super close.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't boat unless I had those two.
I gotta.
No, I would boat, but it would. That's my minimum requirement. Those two boats.
I would totally agree with that. I'm definitely the half slice of the creek boat, and living on the green, it's half slice is just fun to do, especially summer flows coming around. And now that it's running 200% or 150% all the time, I'm very glad to have my creek boat too.
Man, we may finally see some low water, Shane.
I know.
First time in 3 or 4 years.
Wah.
Sorry, you guys.
Yeah. Anyway.
So last question. What's gonna happen with materials and boats? We need a revolution.
Oh, God, this is...
What do you got?
This is how many years we've been talking about this. It's never going to happen.
I've been talking about that since I've been in the industry.
Yeah. What's gonna happen? Nothing?
I'll tell you something that I've been playing with lately is mycelium. And I'm starting to grow these forms out of mycelium. So it's the root structure of mushrooms, and you can grow it so that it's hard as a rock. It's really cool. And then you can shape it in molds and all that. So I'm going to make a mushroom kayak. How about that?
I'll point out you're wearing a tie-dye peace t-shirt. Just so people out there know what we're dealing with.
Friday. I was selling it.
Man.
I don't know. I mean, there's been tons of exploration into, we did the vacuum form stuff. We're doing trying composite stuff out that's been done all over.
You guys have tried everything. I mean,
Is it a money problem? Is it just there's an answer out there? It's just out of reach financially for boaters and manufacturers alike?
It feels like it. To be honest, I haven't even gotten to touch some of the new, like the aerospace stuff that's just totally out of my league that nobody has. I don't, it's out of my reach for sure. I don't even know how they make it. So
What about
I need to
like
explore some more of that kind of stuff, but it feels like money is the main thing. Yeah.
What kind of new aerospace stuff are you talking about, Shane? Like thermoplastics or like beyond that?
Yeah, thermoplastics, and then also composite stuff that's in plastic as well. There's been different developments there, and to be honest, I've just been, especially the last year and a half, I've just been like, I'm just trying to make boats, man.
Yeah, just get them out the door and on the
What are you
truck.
making the most of right now? What boat model?
The Slayer Max 12.5 fishing kayak.
Yeah, that's my third boat.
Yeah, but alphas in whitewater alphas for sure. Yeah, no question at all.
We were talking earlier about, we brought up retailers doing repairs on various gear and things like that. Rather than just focus on, materials and whatnot, do you see there ever being a whitewater kayak where you have these guts and you can order a hull of a different design and your guts are interchangeable, or you can get a different high dollar seat, or just ways to tweak out your boat the way you can, tweak out a bike or whatever? What about that in this industry?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no problem. I mean, some of the parts, well, for example, all of our boats are retrofittable. All the outfitting retrofits into a new boat, an old boat. They can, that's totally doable. We already do. Basically, from the very beginning, our outfitting now can retrofit into a session, and a session's outfitting can retro into probably even an alpha, something like that. The hard part is like foam walls and all that kind of stuff, because you've got to cut those differently, and then those compress over time, and then outfitting does rag out. It gets all loose, so you'd have to update that. But then as far as upgrading, it's just development time, and seeing a market that would work. Because I mean, sure, you could do composites and all of that. Seats are kind of a nightmare in composites. Lewis, you probably broke a lot of seats. We've done quite a few prototype playboats and composites, and seats are just a nightmare to try to keep in those boats just because there's so much torque and everything. But developing that stuff, obviously was it Waka that developed all those carbon seats for their boats for races and stuff like that?
They did, but then they were trying to sell them for like 600 euros or something like that, and it was like,
there's that.
That was the end of that.
Yeah,
it'd be cool to get like 3 hull sizes. You just go buy your boat, and instead of putting like $1,200, $1,500 into whatever, you can just spend like an extra $1,000 and get like 2 extra holes you could interchange or something like that. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking. There's all kinds of things that are well beyond.
We actually do that. I mean, we don't set a price at the front end, but we have a price on the back end
for like a replacement hull.
Yep.
Do you offer that through retailers?
No, we don't. It's more of a warranty thing.
Oh.
Big gear show or big gun show, or big gear show or outdoor retailer?
This year, do we need to go to any of them?
How about next year?
We'll start talking about it. I don't have time to go to a show this year.
Yeah.
You guys raising prices this year?
Yeah. I mean, good Lord, our materials have skyrocketed. We've had big raise in cost.
What's going to be MSRP?
20% in plastic, something like that.
What's MSRP on a Alpha in spring of 2022?
I'd have to go find a sheet.
$2,500.
I think it's not that.
I mean, it was 1,000,
$24,900.
right? It was right at 1,000. So are we looking at 1,200-ish?
I think 13.
13.
Yeah, I think that's where we are.
Man, I still think it needs to be around 15, 16.
Yeah, I agree. That's definitely where we're heading. And I heard a discussion around the office this morning about another little jump, but I'm not sure. I haven't seen the latest on that. Had my head stuck in a fishing kayak this morning, so.
Dude, I love those pictures of your hair, Shane.
Oh,
I forgot all about that, dude. Chelsea actually showed that to me, and she was like, "Do you remember this?" And I was like, "Holy shit, yeah, I do."
it was my last hurrah of hair. I was like, I'm growing it until it's beyond my shoulders one more time, and then I'm shaving it all off slowly with different hairstyles along the way. So it was fun.
So to recap before we let you go here, the molds just disappear. They're not sitting around. I mean, maybe 5 years they sit around, maybe 10.
Well, it just depends. Like we've had molds stolen from behind the factory. We've recycled a few molds. There's still Hefe molds sitting out back there. There's old wreck boat molds back there. It just kind of depends on the situation at the time. They're actually worth almost nothing as a recycled material. So it's kind of a pain in the ass to take a 3,000 pound thing and take it to the recycler. So it's got some issues as far as that goes. And then, and we do every once in a while try, we think about pulling it up. And we've done it a few times. It usually has not been fruitful.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right. Well, there you go. There's the answer, straight from the horse's mouth.
Yeah.
It's a mix mash of things that happen.
Yeah.
We need to get you a beeper so that anytime we have a question, technical question, we can get a hold of you.
For sure, that'd be cool.
I can't believe I
Put it on
couldn't.
your belt.
Thanks for jumping on Skype, Shane. I tried to get your cell phone. I couldn't get it to ring through to the group call here, so I don't know. I gotta figure that out.
All good, man. I enjoy it. You guys,
All right.
great show. Appreciate it.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Later.
Thanks, Shane.
All right. Boys, you know what? Let's just Colorado clapback. Let's just
Yes,
hammer factor
good
for
email.
another 2 hours. Like, I'm just ready to jump in another 2 hours here. I've never been so charged. Hammer factor. Hey, hammer factor. This comes at us from Ian Foley. It has come to my attention that your purposely pompous podcast frequently takes pot shots at Colorado, rad all capitals, kayaking. As a longtime Colorado boater, I feel compelled to set the record straight. Colorado has many exceptional attributes that make it a mink boater's paradise. With 300 days of sunshine and Chihuahua-sized annual precipitation, Colorado cranks out 6 solid weeks of runoff a year. With a whole winter's worth of tantric expectations watching and waiting for moisture, Colorado boaters lead the nation in precipitation expectation. With the highest concentration of expert mink boaters in the nation, Colorado is a global innovator in plastic welding and boat salvage operations. With the kayaking industry perpetually on the verge of collapse, the Colorado mink boaters shredding their gear every year over razor-sharp mank ensure that we lead the way in the highest per capita replacements boats and paddle purchases, making us the savior of the kayak industry sales. Anyone who isn't on a trip to Cali, the Pacific Northwest, or the Southeast knows that Colorado is the place to be. Every year, wannabe paddlers from all over the country flock to Colorado during runoff, proving that Colorado is indeed the best pit stop on the way to Cali. Every year, we find grungy Southeast boaters who say they run the green getting crushed on Gore Canyon like beer cans at the takeout party. Every year, snobby boaters who left this mink paradise for greener pastures come back and complain about getting scratches on their creek boats or getting their hands cold. Well, enough is enough. Colorado is one of the best places in the country for a kayaker to plan to move to the Pacific Northwest. And its central location, with an easy 17 to 24-hour drive to Cali, the Pacific Northwest, Idaho, and the Southeast, making an ideal location to stage national road trips for 44 weeks of our for the 44 weeks our water sucks. Without us, you would have to drive all the way to Cali without a place to get your mank on. Show some respect. When you are in Colorado and break your boat, you might just need us to weld your gear up. And in a final note, while your podcast is entertaining, you clearly are underutilizing the best part of the show, which is Weld's sniper-style salty slams on random, unsuspecting, and undeserving targets. Geltman's Eeyore style updates lamenting the state of DC politics and crying NIMBY about Instagram bros enjoying Spirit Falls could use a little sunshine. I'd also like to request that you get Forrest Noble on the show to share his Great Falls at Flood story, which has got to be one of the best damn kayaking stories I've ever heard. Keep up the good work. I need something to take my mind off the beating I just took raking myself over the Mank on the drive home from the local rivers. Ian.
He's right
That was
about
a
Forrest
great
Noble.
email.
I mean, I had to read that one in full because there were some times.
That was a
when,
great email.
Forrest
Forrest
Noble and
would
I
be
have
awesome.
some epic paddling stories together.
I feel like the only problem with having Forrest on is Forrest doesn't actually remember like where any of these things took place or like.
Oh, not true. Not true. He's a good storyteller. He remembers some details of stuff that we did that I've long since forgotten about.
I love that Great Fall, the High Water Potomac story from Forrest. I've heard it from Forrest and I've heard it from Billy, and it's that's a classic.
Yeah.
Scott Anderson writes in and he requests that we choose a theme for each episode, finding a guest to answer questions based on that theme. He's got a lot
Can I
of...
tell you something that Forrest and I know what I used to do, or Forrest used to do when we were kids? I'm sorry to interrupt. But
Hang on, we'll get back to you, Scott. Hang on.
I'm debating sharing this, but I have to. Forrest Noble, when we were like 16 at Valley Mill, he had a Suburban, so he could drive, which was like a pot of gold, right? And he'd rip the Suburban through neighborhoods, and he did this thing called a moon landing. And I shouldn't be saying this, but he would drive the Suburban into people's backyards in the night, like over their lawn, into their backyards, and high beam them through their living room windows. They called it a moon landing.
Valley Mill!
Old group. Okay, sorry. Let's go back to your email.
I don't know where to go with that.
I mean, that's just a little intro into the paddling escapades. They just went,
Scott Anderson has a lot of good suggestions in here. Who gets to name a rapid? The person who runs it first. Can you think of any examples?
I know Gutman's all about the organization, but I just agree with it trying to structure this show. This is a wild pony that cannot be tied down.
He's got some good suggestions in here, though.
I think we can go ahead and like give the show a name and completely ignore it to the rest.
I mean,
each week we give our what's the intro of This American Life? Each week we choose a theme, something.
Chapters or whatever. Yeah.
Okay, we went over fate of kayak molds. Here, dear Mr. Weldon, IR, please hear, thank you. This is from Carl Smith. I wanted to play it, but Lewis said I couldn't play it.
Let's
Carl, if you want to get some answers to the questions you're asking, you just write us an email.
Read Leif's email.
Which one is that? The title races?
He asked us to keep anonymous.
Yeah, he sent me this customer service thing.
Go ahead and read
Leif
it.
is a local paddler here in the gorge. Unmistakable.
Where's it at? Which one is this? I don't see it.
It's in the worst return request ever.
Oh.
Sent as a PDF.
Let's see what it says. I don't even...
Dear Mr. Weld, I'm ready to request an immediate replacement of an IR product I own. If you recall, we spoke about this matter in Mr. Fusilli's driveway approximately 10 to 25 months ago, at which point you reassured me that although you had to check with the owner, it was virtually a sure thing that you could get me a replacement, and it should be no problem. The time has come to deliver on those promises. The product that, crossed out, I would like replaced, you will be replacing, is a short sleeve women's thick skin in the lilac blue color scheme, size XL. I noticed during a recent visit to your so-called shop that this particular choice is discontinued, but I would be willing to accept just about any blue-colored replacement. The reason that this particular replacement is necessary is that the poor quality garment has started to fall apart. In particular, there was a small tear near the left armpit from when I fell on some bushes. There are some slight complications. I didn't keep my proof of purchase because I actually won the original rash guard for free by taking 5th place at a freestyle competition. However, there is an abundance of documentation of my glorious victory. Just Google my name plus Montana Kayak Rodeo 2005. I can't remember the actual name of the rodeo, but it was definitely in Montana. Furthermore, I won't be returning the actual physical rash guard in question per se because I can't find it. For this reason, I also cannot supply any photos of the damage. I have included a photo of me paddling in the original thick skin, although obviously you can't see the rash guard underneath the dry top. In fact, speaking of photos, I should mention that I'm sponsored by one of your main competitors, see Dry Top in photo. So if you IR logos from the new replacement, that would be great. My address is below, as is my email, so you can notify me when to come pick up my thick skin, which will hopefully be soon. P.S. I purchased one replacement earlier today with money, and the employee, John, who helped me, was extremely unhelpful. I had to wait several minutes while he cut the sleeves off and rehemmed the long sleeve top that we converted to short sleeve. And when I changed my mind about the color, the second one he hemmed took even longer. P.S. Found the original rash guard. It appears to be an NRS Hydro skin. Hope that's not an issue.
He actually hits a lot of tropes in there. I'll give him credit for that. Any single one of those sentences could have been from an actual return.
Did you replace it?
I did cut the sleeves off his rash guard. He went a short sleeve. Cut the sleeves off and hemmed him for him.
Let's see. Forward, Hammer Factor, John Grace's new shuttle rig, a inflatable SUP board. I didn't quite get that one. I guess they inflated it with helium, so it floated. Man, we got what's Big Ben? My darling wife would probably like it. Okay, here we go. Hey, folks. This comes at us from Corin Kelly. Really enjoyed the insightful and funny Benny interview. My darling wife would probably like a nudie Benny calendar, though she'd say I'd want the premium version. She took about 50 photos at Benny at Skookumchuck and 2 of me blowing off the wave. Her excuse was that he was on it a lot. Sure. We had made a once-in-a-lifetime visit to Canada, and I persuaded the family to take the camper to Egmont via a kayak store on the wrong side of Vancouver. I knew the tides would be the biggest of the year and wanted to get some lead in days, but the way things went, I got there on the biggest evening. I was nervous. Got on the water too early, passed the rapid thinking it couldn't be. Paddled on for a time before realizing my area. By the time I worked my way back, the wave was rocking. My wife and young kids were there by then, wondering where I had got to. My son got really overexcited and wanted to jump into the water. Oh crap, that was scary trying to keep him on the dry rock. Eventually got a few wobbly surfs in, amazing to sit there and wonder at the flow, clear water, etc. Then something shimmered above me on the rock like a Greek god. Flowing hair, the man, time stopped. Even the wave took a deep breath. I said hello and introduced the kids to him. Then we watched the best surfing I had ever seen up close and with my own eye. A really genuine guy. Great show, lads. Any chance you could talk to some of the best whitewater coaches to discuss trends and how they are matching boat trends? Could you talk to Rush about shoulder rehab and getting back on the horse? I watched all his LW runs and his Norfolk runs and his amazing hand roll off of Cherry. Clearly, I have hero worship issues. Corin. God, dude, the Hammer Factor audience is so much more talented than we are.
We got some good emails. We should. I like that idea about having some like kayak coaches on.
Yeah, me too. I think that'd be super valuable.
How about Sylvan?
That'd be awesome.
I know somebody. We know somebody who knows Sylvan. One of our fellow downriver people or downwinder people.
Back to downwinding.
Yeah.
That would be a good craft for some lithium-ion technology.
Aiden. Where are you going? This is Aiden. You want to say hi?
What's up, Aiden? Welcome to the Hammer Factor, man.
You're still doing a show.
He's the alpha voter.
You got the smaller one or the bigger one?
Smaller one or the bigger one?
I have 75. Still pretty big though.
Okay.
I think it's similar size to like the 9R2.
Okay.
There you go.
But I love it. It's great.
I agree.
All right. Thank you.
Justin Varney comes in. He says, "Hey crew, I have been a bit behind on episodes. Last one I listened to, I think it was the one you put out. You brought up the term title bore and welled throughout the Shuby up in Nova Scotia without naming it specifically. Living in Maine and being into surfing a sea kayak and playing with surf kayaks, tide races are a huge part of my whitewater in the summer when local stuff no longer runs. If you want to chat about it, I'm all about it. It's something we chase regularly from Nova Scotia to New Brunswick. St. John's Reversing Falls, although I admit it's the one I haven't gotten to yet, to Sullivan Falls, the Sheepscot, Blue Hill Falls in Maine. It's kind of a staple here. I can also write you a really long email if you want. Just always been stoked on the podcast and got all jacked up when you mentioned one of my favorite parts of paddling. Thanks, Justin." I'm kind of fascinated by the tidal bores. I
am too. I kind of would like to have this dude on and hear about I feel like the East Coast ones. I mean, like Scoop's obviously super famous, but I feel like there must be more. And like, I feel like a lot of them are just under the radar and want somebody to come spill the beans to us.
We kept threatening to stop at the one in Nova Scotia on one of our expeditions up to Newfoundland back in the day, but never did.
You see pictures of that one, like the Bitches, I think it's called, in Wales.
I've never heard of that one.
Oh. They had like the freestyle worlds there in the 90s. But I don't know, it looks like good surfing. It seems like some of the other ones to me, like you see pictures and it really just looks like a lot of like really fast moving water but without like surfable features, but maybe that's just my ignorance.
And then we have one here about foamy boaters. I don't want to read that one. We have some surprises coming up there. I don't know, boys. That about puts us to the end of this show. I'm going to have to bump this one into 2 because we are at 2 hours and 31 minutes.
This is like hardcore history.
Oh,
I feel like we've covered like the entire saga of the Japanese rise to power pre-World War II.
Yeah. Great guest. Sage was great. Matt was great. It's a good show.
Shane, come on.
Special guest Shane clearing it up. Everybody's raising prices. We got to talk about that.
Well, yeah.
Gonna get a lot more expensive to go kayaking. And then we had an Instagram video that was on the Astral page. We're not getting into that, are we? That's here on my show notes.
That's a whole thing.
That's a whole nother show.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, welcome to your favorite part of the show. This is Rants and Raves, where your hosts go a little bit of rant or a little bit of rave about something that makes them excited as an NFT or as unexcited as a special warranty repair. Who'd like to kick us off here?
Geltman, you prepared? I know you've been thinking about this, keeping notes.
I'm not really prepared, but I'm going to rave just about our emailers, man. Those were some great emails today. That Leif's warranty email and the Colorado email, those were all time. And I don't know. Like, I feel like when people send in really funny, well-crafted emails like that, it really makes my day. So thank you guys.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun when we do them on the show, but when they first come through and I read them, it's just like, I don't know. It's like 8 hours of endorphins. It like gets me through a day. Yeah, it's pretty good.
I want to rave about. I shouldn't even bring this up because it's like raving about living in the gorge because it could make your life miserable in turn. But I want to rave about World Class Kayak Academy, where my kid just finished his first year.
This is such a new angle that I've heard.
Yeah,
from you on this.
I mean, to be fair, I really was I don't say dismissive, but it wasn't part of the agenda a couple of years ago. But after Aiden's experience there, it was great. I mean, pandemic aside, where all schools were kind of messed up, the amount of attention he got from the teachers was impressive. But he's just a different person after a year of school there. He's just a different kid in a better way. So, yeah, then we went to graduation ceremony. You know, he didn't graduate, but it's a whole school thing. And hearing the stories and hearing teachers talk, it was cool. And we're entering an era, I think, where people are rethinking traditional education more than they ever have before. Like, what does it mean to go to college? What does it mean to go to high school? I'm not saying you won't go to college or you won't go to college, you go to world class, but the era of that kind of school is coming, I think. You know, when you start looking at like the world that we grew up in, where it was a drive to get to college, and you know, university for me at least was $8,000 a year. You know, that whole career track made sense. But when you're spending, you know, $300,000 to send your kid to college, what does that mean now? You know, what's that going to get? What's going to happen with that? You know. Anyway, I don't want to dive too far into that, but shout out to that program for sure.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could get way in the weeds on that one.
Yeah.
I'm going to rave. Oh, go ahead.
I was saying we should have Capo on one of these days.
Yeah, Cop and I had a very. He's a smart guy, obviously, and he's the guy who runs the program, and he does a bunch of schools. They just do kayaking, they do biking, or they do windsurfing, they do climbing. I don't know anything about those programs, so I'm just talking about the kayaking. But we had a very short but in-depth and intriguing conversation right before graduation, talking a lot about what I was just mentioning now about schools and stuff like that. So.
I
mean, what do you think? I mean, suddenly Aiden's running, like doing truss laps, like it's running, class 2, and the confidence he has in his boating is amazing. He went to Costa Rica or to Ecuador and spent, a month or 6 weeks in Ecuador, paddling. I mean, what do you think, Gelman? Of all people, you have the most traditional education of us all, private school,
yeah, I mean,
big college,
It seems to me like in a lot of ways, education is turning into like there's like two tracks, right? There's like going and like getting an education, and then there's going and like getting like career preparation. And like the degree to which those things seem to be like becoming siloed to me it's kind of just, I don't know, like it kind of disturbs me in a lot of ways. It's like, like when you go to college, like you should like read the classics and like you should be able to, write well when you come out of that.
But is that worth $300,000 now?
I mean, I guess like leaving the price aside,
$250,000.
it's like it just seems like there's such a divergence between people who are doing these like really like technical programs focused on getting some particular job or going into some particular line of work, and just like having a general education. And it's like, to me, the idea that you're, like when you're on this like career track, to me, like then it's like it is very much strictly like a ROI proposition, right? It's like, does this make sense financially? And then there's like, like what is it worth to you, or like do you have the means or whatever just to like become an educated person because you see value in that? And it's like, I don't know, it's sort of sad to me that those things seem to be so, that it is so expensive just to have a good, well-rounded education, and also that like there are people who are coming out of college who don't have that. It's like, it's kind of I think society loses something when people are not, don't have like a well-rounded education.
I agree. I mean, I studied English. I mean, I have to talk about a liberal arts degree.
So did I.
I don't have a regret at all for the money I paid for that degree. It's unbelievable, right? I can write better. I can read better. I have, I treasured that education, but it's just so much more expensive now, right?
And it's also like, I mean, to me, the thing about so much of it too is like, if you're not very, like some people, I think, it's like you can go to college or whatever, and like somebody will just like lay out the things for you to do, and like you do them, and then you will have this education. But like that's not the only way to become an educated person by any stretch of the imagination, right? It's like you can read and you can like have these experiences and like do all these other things. And like, I think sometimes there is like too much emphasis on like, do you have the piece of paper that says you like went here and did this? Like it seems kind of I don't know, it seems kind of ridiculous sometimes.
I mean, look at the Markovs as one example. They run Kaleva, definitely non-traditional approach to education, right? But I mean, they have this gigantic, successful, sprawling business across that encompasses basically all of Western Montgomery County.
Totally, and it's like, I mean, I guess part of that sort of like divergence between that like career training focused education and that sort of like classical education is it's like you don't really know anymore. Like somebody just because they graduated from college or whatever, it doesn't mean that they're, you know, a good writer or you know, have read the classics or thought about philosophy or whatever, and like it almost devalues the college degree to the point that it's like.
And to be fair, the Wicked kid, every Wicked graduate that I talked to, and they stayed at our house pretty much for like a week afterward. There was like 16 kids here hanging out, but all of them were going to college. So it wasn't like mutually exclusive. It wasn't like if you go to Wicca, your future education's doomed. That wasn't the case at all, you know, and not bad colleges either. So, I mean,
I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying. I think that you can get a good, well-rounded education online, and there's several different ways to do that. But one thing that a lot of universities offer that is just irreplaceable is access to professionals, access to great scientists, access to people who are leading the edge on physics or writing or whatever, that you can only get. It's like having a great coach. You know, it's like watching somebody who's a true professional kayak is so much more valuable than someone who's a class 3 person tell you how to kayak. Do you know what I mean?
But you have to balance that against, you know, the 30-some-year-olds who work for me who still have college debt.
No, I 100%. I'm just stuck talking about the value of what the university offers that you can't get from basically an online program or a community college program or things like that. And you're right, you have to balance out what that, if that's worth it, you know. So, and
I think there is so much. I feel like there's so much opportunity to become educated doing things other than going to college, but like you have to be like purposeful about it if you're doing that, you know. Like I guess I think about it in the context of like, you know, like hiring somebody, and it's like I'm not saying you have to have a college degree, like for sure, but like I mean, I expect you to be functioning at a like way higher level than somebody who just graduated from college. And like how you got there, if you got there through some novel pathway, like I want to hear about it. Like that's awesome, and like I commend you for doing that. Like I'm not saying I need that piece of paper, but like if you're gonna, you know, reach that level of education without going to college, like you're gonna have to tell the story. It's gonna take some doing, you know. It's like you're not gonna just like get there by like drifting along.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, under what circumstances would it, besides going to law school, would it make sense going to Georgetown and studying history right now?
If you're really independently wealthy or if you got a scholarship.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, the days of going to history because you're going to just come out as a well-rounded liberal education, those days are done.
That's sad.
And maybe right.
Or you're
yeah,
going to go to law
sad.
school and try and monetize that.
Oh, and then there's a whole nother step of how this education, why it's so expensive, the whole system. You know, there's just.
But as a parent with 2 kids who are getting ready to go to college, I mean, I think about this a lot, right? And I can say for sure my thoughts about this before world class were very different than after world class.
So you're leaning much more towards a non-traditional education, or you see the values of that much more than you did just.
I'm saying it's on the table now. Yeah. To me, that's something that's on the table.
I agree with you. I agree with you there.
I'm not saying it's right for everybody. You know, like my younger kid, I think he's going to thrive in regular school. But that's all.
Yep.
And saying that it's on the table for someone who comes from, you know, parents who were in education. My dad was a college professor, right? To say that kind of education is on the table now says a lot to me about that program. I guess that's what I'm.
What do you mean? What do you mean on the like? What's on the table?
It's a viable option.
Like
if you asked me 5 years ago if I was going to send my kid to world class, what would I do? I'd be like, no.
Oh, okay. You're just talking about world class. I thought you were talking about some alternative.
No, world class. Yeah, world class.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to shut us down here with a rave. I'm going to rave about the diversity of disciplines in whitewater. I got a squirt boat, borrowed a Bigfoot squirt boat, and went up to a place, Cowbells, the other day. And it was low water. No one else was there. Zenned out for like 3 straight hours, just tweaking out on little waves and seams. And it was just so good for someone who's been kayaking so long to just get like a fresh rush like that when you just switch it up. I'm just going to rave about
Is
that.
your elbow doing better?
It is doing better. I've kayaked a few times, done a few
Guess who called me to
attainments.
ask for a left-hand control paddle a couple weeks ago?
I thought I was done, dude. I left the doctor and I thought I was done.
So what's the status now?
Well, let me show you. No one can see this, but do you see that
Yeah.
bump right there?
Yeah. Is it your elbow or your wrist?
Well, the problem is right here on my elbow, but these tendons are what pulls your wrist back like that. And you can see that bump hits right there. You see that?
Yeah.
And so what happens is every time I feather on that hand, it's a hard stop on my tendon. And so it just has all kinds of pressure right there. And so basically I went to the surgeon. He was like, well, you can just use your other hand as a control paddle. And I was
Bingo.
like, I was like, oh, well, I'll just have to talk to Will about that.
So are you doing it?
I don't know.
I have 2 lefty AT paddles in my garage right now.
Right now, I'm just kind of managing it. I'm doing a lot of rehab, a lot of, what do they call it? I'm doing a lot of rehab.
0 degree offset is what he's doing. Let's just cut to the chase.
And I do have a 0 degree offset paddle on order. So
God help
Right.
us.
we'll see how that works out.
We'll give you a special dispensation for that.
Bottom line, I'm back on the water, so I'm beyond stoked. And I think I will have to, either I'm going to have to get surgery or do something different. It'll never be just the way it was, that's for sure.
Are you going to be able to paddle when you come up to the North Fork?
I think so. My goal is
Can we go kayaking together?
Yeah. Are you coming up?
I think I'll probably come over like Thursday night.
Yeah. I won't be able to. I'll be working Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but I'll be able to after I break down on Sunday. I don't know how long you'll be around, but
You're flying out, right?
who?
You.
No, I'm driving.
You're driving.
Mm-hmm. And then we're going a week after that, the Hillickies, and then we're gonna stay out there and hang out. And I'm gonna make an Idaho trip out of it. The family's gonna come out. We're gonna tour around, have a little summer vacation.
Yeah, you've worked hard enough. It's time for a break.
Exactly.
I know you're probably still reeling from that ski vacation this winter. And it's time just to relax.
Go get your surf ski and eat some granola, dude. Jeez. All right,
let's shoot this horse. This thing is on its last legs
Should I
here.
just throw it up
Let's
as
take it
one
from the
long
arm and
episode? Should I just just be like, here you go, 3 hours, take it.
Just take it.
That's kind of where we're at here. All right. Thank you for listening to Hammer Factor. Thank you for all the listener mails. Thanks for tuning in. Go ahead and hit subscribe on whatever link there that you get it. Check out our NFT for the first episode. And we'll catch you next episode.